Hospitality Marketing, live show number 238. I am your moderator without co-hosts, Loren Gray. And thank you for those that are joining us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and, well, lots of Facebook, actually. And let's see what we got here. We got hello, Milan. Yes. Hello, Bali. Good morning. I think it's about 2 a.m. your time, if I'm not mistaken. And welcome, everyone, to the show. Lots to talk about this week, as always. Of course, the biggest thing to talk about is current events when it comes to the coronavirus and its impact on our industry at this point. It's kind of the black swan of discussion for us, considering the fact that we are at that point that no matter what we say for price, no matter what we say is the quality of our product, no matter how well we are communicating it, and no matter how good we are at being what we are, there is a diminished demand. There is the unwillingness to travel for the uncertainty of the exposure that it creates for us, for the uncertainty of what this virus represents. I'm certainly not here to speak from an expert position on being a coronavirus expert to that. We leave those to the experts. But we do get to talk about its impact to our industry and what it is actually doing to the demand cycle for us. Oh, there we go. I go from yellow to blue. I was wondering why. It's like, why was I so golden? Light changes. But it is making an impact. It's making an impact anywhere. It is a non-discriminatory. Oops, I got Mr. Robert Cole with his finger over the camera. Mr. Robert Cole, Rock Cheetah, how are you, sir?
I was adjusting the angle here, so.
Yeah, it makes you look skinnier this way. It works out really, really well.
That's what I'm trying to. Yeah, I have one of those funhouse mirrors.
Well, I was bringing up, of course, the main thing. You didn't have to be the one that made it clear on your excellently curated list that you send out each week, which you can subscribe to by going to bit.ly/Rock Cheetah, all lowercase. That's bit.ly/lowercase Rock Cheetah.
Do you have a graphic for that? You need it kind of down in the
I actually do, and this platform actually does it, and I am a slack daddy on not having done that for us. I remember I had those little pop-ups that came in. I have been remiss in doing that. I will promise you on the next show, I will have that drop in at all, and I'll make it go wow, wow, wow.
I was going to say, can you make it flash? Yeah. Back to the days of the flashing GIF.
Yeah. No, I was talking about the fact that we are no experts on the coronavirus, but we are experts on the impact of the virus on our industry.
Well, I speak for yourself.
Have you been talking to Trump? You were one of the teams with the vice president? Wow, I didn't know that, Robert. Wow.
No. Let me tell you, the Focusrite email bucket, right? Yeah, there's a thing for the analysts to kind of throw stuff back and forth. It's erupting now. The big challenge is Mobile World Congress in Barcelona was canceled. I can't remember the attendance of that. Largest mobile,
very large,
huge, right? But the big one is next week is ITB Berlin.
Yep.
And ITB Berlin pulls in 160,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's you have a travel section, right, which is the industry event, which has the conferences and kind of what all of us are interested in, and then there's a big consumer event that follows it, right, which drives up all the numbers. The numbers of companies, travel companies, that are invoking travel bans, and in Europe, groups like, I should go look up the exact ones that the people are talking about, but Amadeus has a travel ban, and if you have travel companies who live and die by travel, and they're banning it, then you've got a very, very serious situation. And that's exactly what's happening.
The things that pop up into the news where recommendation, of course, is not to travel to the east, not to take any cruise ships over to the east. Now, there's flights that have already been shut off. We already know that hotel trains have been shut down in the east. Yeah. Now we're getting things where we're finding out that, and this is the thing that was
Europe, Italy is the big problem.
In northern Italy, and what's happening now is that, as it's pointed out, there's that one case in California where they don't know how she got it. It wasn't because of the obvious of having traveled from or been a participant in. This is in the blue, just in place, and boom, all of a sudden somebody has this.
Yeah. Which is very logical because, again, you've got a relatively extended incubation period, right? And people are saying they don't know if it's 6 days, 14, something like that. But you can get this from individuals who are not exhibiting any symptoms, right? So that puts in a whole new dimension of where did it come from? Plus the standard kind of flu style or common cold style transmission, right? The coughing, sneezing on a surface, things like that. So yeah, it's tough. So
it is, and we have travel coming up ourselves. I'm going to San Antonio next week for the Navigate conference.
Right.
Mr. Stewart, one of our co-hosts, is not feeling well, and it's not because of this; it's just a cold. But all said and saying,
which is a coronavirus, because there are 4 major coronavirus. The common cold are actually 4 strains of coronavirus, which come around very regularly, and that's kind of the fear. And I think the Center for Disease Control, that's kind of what they're saying is this is going to happen, right? Yeah. This isn't like an if, this is a when. And really the bottom line is the only line of battle is they've got to work on a vaccine, and but they've also got to test that, because when you look back to HIV, they had a couple promising vaccines that people were saying, get it out into humans, and they go, no, we got to do these trials. Well, guess what? It killed the original vaccines, killed people. It made things worse. Yeah. So you go, oh, maybe we do want to do a couple tests here instead of.
There's a scientific method and there's a purpose for that. But no, what I like to talk about is really the impact for us on the hospitality side. Is we know the scare is out there. We know finally we're seeing some of the platforms begin to define some of the things. Like, for instance, Facebook is finally saying something about the fact that they're going to begin to block unsubstantiated conspiracy theory chatter about this, which too little, too late, Zuck.
That's really and that's a very slippery slope for them. And not that they shouldn't be doing it. They should, It's the whole Section 230 thing where the platform, hey, we've got nothing to do with it. They need to behave more like newspapers, right? Where it's,
in this case, I believe that there is jurisprudence into having editorial control and saying, we know this is junk that's being sent out, and it's not freedom of speech. It's not freedom to discuss openly. This is bad propaganda, and we can control or at least mitigate some of this stuff knowing that it is that kind of deterrent stuff. But
yelling fire in a crowded movie theater is not free speech.
No. Now with that, obviously we have the economies were holding out, and I think strangely enough, the woman that shook the world was the girl in California, where they said, we don't know where this came from, and all of a sudden, boom. The economy says, this isn't just going to go away. This isn't contrived and controlled. This is going to be an issue. We can't keep holding our breath. And boom, sell off.
And again, to pull a Tim Peter on everyone, I believe on this show, many times I have been saying there's going to be a downturn. There's going to be a correction. All markets can't continue to go up. And the question is, what's the catalyst? And it's going to be something that nobody foresaw. The global financial crisis wouldn't have been a crisis if everybody knew it was coming, right? Sort of thing. And they planned for it. These are the sorts of unanticipated disruptive type things that happen. And what do we have? A superheated stock market by all measures, all the PE ratio, you name it. Asset valuations are just through the roof at historically high levels. It's going to adjust back at some point. Well, now all of a sudden you have a catalyst for it. So now they're saying it's a correction, and that's okay. But
it's below its line already, and it's continued to descend. Well, and today we woke up to world economies going down. We were the pin that twisted, and now all the other ones are like, okay, that happened. Now this is happening. Because even though they're saying, hey, the growth rate in China has slowed and there is the opportunity for some industries to come back to work, it has created a gap point. It's like when you stop advertising, that you create a gap of non-exposure. And even if you pick it back up, that gap still is still in front of you because you've stopped doing what you normally do. So that gap has yet to hit the economies. And right now we see that the markets have already adjusted for that by saying, we know this is coming. This is not an avoidable circumstance. Valuation will go down. We're going to take our money out for right now because we're at a peak, and we'll worry about going back into it later. And again, that's just impacts of all this. I don't want to. I'm not sitting here to regurgitate the news that everybody else already sees.
Right.
I'm looking at the fact that I have real conversations with clients right now where we're talking about what are we doing about this.
Right.
And I can tell you, it is embarrassing to watch some competition do exactly what they were touting and chest beating that they would never do. Go back to the OTAs with hat in hand and dump inventory and lower rate.
You bet.
It's the fastest thing I've seen them do.
It's
like,
easy, and it works.
I mean, we're looking at Smith Travel Report. It's like, I'm very happy with my clients and what we're doing, and that they're responsive to what we discuss with them as to strategies. We're strategic in what we're doing, and we're looking at the star reports and so forth. And these boxes are trying to maintain occupancy, and they're dumping rate to try to maintain occupancy. Right. And here's the issue with this:
there is no you dropping rate is not going to increase demand into your So for ITB is a great example, right? The city is always packed. I haven't done an analysis of what their rates are doing. I'm sure they're cratering because even I was on a call yesterday, an industry call, global audience, all these people, tech people, normally flocking to ITB. 2/3 of them at least had already at least half had already canceled. Another 30% were considering it, and I mean we're talking, maybe 15% were planning on still going. That's been, you aren't going to increase more. Go, we're going to drop our rate a little bit, and then all of a sudden, it's not going to change. Oh, well, in that case, I'll go because I can save 100, but 100 euros a night. All you're going to do is maybe shift share from a competitor, maybe, but probably not. The people who are traveling are the ones who have to, and they're going to go to wherever. Most of them, it's not discretionary sort of leisure travel. They're going to go where their company booked them or their corporate travel policy or something like that. So playing around with it is not going to help.
Shout out to Lex. Hey, Lex, how are you? You're more than welcome to join us. We got Robert and I will just dominate the conversation all day unless somebody smart and intelligent joins us. So just if you want to join in, you have to
hang on. I got to fill out the bingo card. See, so one of my little, if I could reach my back to Pat, back a long time ago. Again, back, at the dawn of time. That's
pretty far back.
In the 80s, one of my claims to fame is Four Seasons non-discounting policy. Now, Four Seasons does discount. They do a lot of group deals. They get a lot of group of things like that. But it was basically resiliency surrounding your rate strategy, right? Which is very, very difficult for owners to deal with. But in the mid 80s, there were problems and recessions and things like that, or late 80s. What did we do? We came in and said, hold these rates. The occupancy is going to drop, but when we come out of it, we are not going to have as deep a hole to dig out of. And we're going to retain our retail pricing structure. This is the value we provide. This is the money we need to operate appropriately, to pay our employees, do all these sorts of things. And if we don't do that, we're either going to create, big gaps somewhere of not paying for things or cutting out services we normally provide. So let's just do this. And that strategy has basically been, it was done in the mid 80s, and the company's abided by it since. And they've always done better than their competition, who winds up cratering their rates. And all of a sudden people are going, you can get a luxury hotel for $100. That's great. And all of a sudden you're training very, very bad, detrimental, behavior for some short-term quarterly benefit. So with no long-term perspective. So anyway,
the interesting part about this impact, this black swan, because I think we can legitimately call this a black swan.
Yeah. Oh, I think so.
Okay. Is the fact that there is no insurance coverage for this. Okay.
Yeah.
If you go and look at your policies, it doesn't say in case of pandemic, which it's not quite yet, but it will. Okay. Then we're going to cover your loss of revenue. Okay. It's not a fire. It's not a flood. It's not, those kind of things, terrorism attack or anything like this that has coverage binders that you can put to this. Yes. Unless you bought a very aggressive, robust insurance policy that covered, the potential of and so forth. But when you have a general reduction in demand for nothing that you can control, right. In this case, because of the uncertainty of travel, okay, it's not your rate, it's not your product, it's not your destination, it's not anything that you can do and communicate differently on. you just have to sit there and realize that this is going to cost hotels money.
And
it's going
the
to cost
entire
them
economy.
business.
Everything, right?
And having lived through 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had this conversation on the show many times. There's the layering of your response.
Mm-hmm.
If this lasts in the sense of the impact of the depression of demand and travel, then you have the first layer, which is the extra people that you brought on board, the people that are the newest, or that were the extra hands, or maybe the lower performers that you can say, you know what, we got to come back. So sorry, Loren. Bye.
Yeah, the nice to haves disappear really quickly.
And then if it continues on, then you have to start taking away people that you would not want to lose should business come back, but you don't have the business to keep them. And so, again, Loren, goodbye. And then it really begins to hurt.
Oh yeah, we're going to shut down these. We're going to we are going to shut down these rooms for floors, whatever, 8 through 12 are down.
Now you're letting people go that you never would want to let go, and knowing that if you ever do get business back again, you're going to have to replace them because they're very critical people, but you can't keep them in the current finances that you are because you have to make payroll, and then you cut them. And then the strategy with that, which is often the most successful, is you cut deeper than you think you need to, because you want to just say, look, we are going to cut like this. We're taking the pain now, but this will then buy us longer time,
whatever, 9 months instead of 3 months or something, right? Just in case, let's do that. And that most of the time winds up being, an easier scenario to recover from. Right. So,
and then there's still one more final stage, which is life support, which is absolute skeleton crew. If you're still trying to maintain operations, absolute skeleton crew that is multitask, that is literally your core, your exec team. Your GM is running front desk. Your salespeople are cleaning room. Our salesperson is cleaning room. Your engineer is, cleaning rooms, setting rooms. Everybody's doing whatever it is to be able to make sure that there's some semblance of inventory available for whatever business you can drive.
And all of a sudden, having a general manager who has actual operations experience really comes in helpful at that point.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
or department heads or things like that who've run it. Maybe they're a little rusty, but they can, they know how the stuff works and the things that
that's when the people that came up through the ranks measure against those that just got brought in to handle job descriptions, and that's when the revenue management person, once they've done their 15 minutes of revenue management. Because there's nothing to revenue manage, is out in the front desk and is out cleaning rooms if they want to be around and getting a paycheck compared to all the people that had to be let go. So, we've lived through those times.
And it's not my job and for anyone who wants to say it's not my job in these scenarios, that is the best way to lose that job.
You're right. It's not your job.
Guess what? It's not your job anymore.
I mean, I still to this day wish that there was somebody that had written a book or had recounted what happened to Orlando out in 2001. Because that was an absolute bloodbath I remember, full hotels being shut down. I remember, crews that were being shared between hotels, housekeeping crews, and everyone on that crew was literally a director of housekeeping. Right. It wasn't layers of, it was to keep that skill set somehow employed. And they were actually sharing the crew between what little hotel space was still available for booking at the time. And it was, mold rooms because they couldn't keep the air running on floors, and just it was absolutely,
shutting down. And if you're a hotel owner, you do not want to close the property, because all of a sudden your valuation just you lose 90% of it at that point. You really want to try to keep it going.
It's hard to mothball a hotel, especially in warm climate. Winter hotels that go through the winterization where they close down for winter, a little bit easier to coordinate, but still just as painful in that sense. But this is all
if you're seasonal. You can open later, shutter. You can do things like that. You have the process. But if it's a real operating hotel, my poster child was the Hyatt in Dearborn, Michigan. I think 800 room classic Hyatt Regency, rotating restaurant on the 1980s prototype, atrium hotel, convention hotel, located right across from Ford's headquarters. I can't remember the Southfield Mall, whatever the whatever the big mall is right there. And these guys, we were in there for a dance competition on a weekend with like little girls, running around dancing, and it was just pandemonium. And I ran into the GM and just went, "Oh my God, this is horrible." What are you guys doing? He goes, "We love this business." He goes, "Structurally, we are running 11% occupancy." The hotel had been in foreclosure, bankruptcy for I think 11 months, 9 or 11 months at that point. The owners had decided to keep it open. They didn't have their fine dining room and their 24-hour cafe and things like that. It was just one food and beverage outlet. I think they shut down room service. There was no concierge. I think there was one bellman. All the plants hanging off the atrium. God, it was a skeleton. And the guy goes, "You want to see a nightmare? Next week, Junior Hockey League. We've got, adrenaline fueled, teenage kids with sticks and pucks, right?
Yeah.
Not what you want at
Hello,
all.
Clip Shot from Barcelona.
But that was the only thing they could do, right? That was it, right? They were on complete life support, and what are you going to do? Or you're just going to sit there and do nothing. We're going to have nothing. Right.
So Sleep Shots in Barcelona, and of course we know that the mobile conference was closed out there.
Bonjour, Louis, and my apologies to Louis, because when I posted on his LinkedIn page where he had and I did it very quickly at night. He had a LinkedIn page because of the Expedia downsizing, and where he was extending an olive branch, and I kind of just saw it and go, "Oh yeah, here it is," and I made a little snarky remark, which I'll bring up when we discuss the Expedia. But Louis, I apologize for that, because it was not in the context of what he was basically saying is, "Hey, if you've been displaced, you've lost your job, let's put up a network and have people help find people things to do." So
let's discuss a little bit about strategies of what you can do. I mean, in all honesty, we can say the same thing that everybody else is, and bandwagons about horror stories and everything else, and we're only contributing to what people already know. Let's contribute to something that may not.
First thing is you hire hospitality digital marketing Loren Gray to come in.
That's the first thing you do. The second,
fix it. That's really all you need to do.
That's all you need to know.
It's a one-step process.
Let's talk about the things that you shouldn't do. You first off shouldn't follow the lemmings and go off to OTAs and start dumping inventory in. You shouldn't listen to, and I've seen this from the TDCs in some cities, already announced to their constituent hoteliers that they should offer as much deals as they can for the month of March for either spring break or whatever it is that they can offer on the platforms. And if you look at the bidding cost on the OTA's bid cycle, it literally almost half again its cost right now, because everybody jumped on them and started advertising their lower rates. Yep. That's what you shouldn't do. Right. Don't look to the OTAs.
Your return is going to be very, very low. Now that doesn't mean you're
part of the white noise at that point. You are literally
like that.
You're part of the white noise. Right. What you need to do is something that we've talked about before, and that is you have to clearly identify the people you still feel can try to come through your door from a persona point of view. What are the demographics and geographies of these people? What could bring people through your door that still would be interested in travel or have to travel, or would be reasonable in thinking that they're still not traveling, where that diminished demand is not there. That demographics, for instance, case in point, San Antonio. Spring break, everybody leaves the city. That's already a part of their March program, and they tend to go down to Corpus Christi and Galveston and South Padre and all this. So we reversed our strategy to target geographically those areas for people for two categorizations: the young couples that don't want to go with their kegger friends, and the older couples that don't want to hang around kids.
Right.
Okay. And so that's a targeting, and it's been very strong. And so too with Houston, so too with Austin, and then secondary for all of that is Dallas, because it's quite a stretch to get them all the way down to San Antonio. But the idea is, while everyone's running away from the fire, run into the fire. Look at what people still need to travel, or in your market need, that you can offer. Again, to your point, not discounting rates, making it a reasonable tiered rate. Okay, you're not trying to exploit the situation, but look for the people that, and also too, there's a lot of displaced travelers. Okay. All those people that were going to go on the cruise boats, that were going to go to Northern Italy, that were going to go to these places, are now thinking, wait a minute, I still want my vacation. I still want to do something.
Right.
Okay. So what areas could I go to that would be fun and not as dangerous that I'm getting stuck on a cruise ship or getting quarantined in a foreign country?
Right.
Same. And making that a highlight of your opportunity. And it's not that you put it in your advertisement, hey, trying to avoid the virus. We don't have it yet. It's not that kind of messaging. What you're trying to point out is the uniqueness of the convenience of your destination, perhaps. Mm-hmm. And this is one place where independent hotels are going to crush brands, because brand is opening up their little playbook of dump inventory and OTAs. And the owners of the hotels are saying, hey, brand, that's why I give you money. We're
right.
business. You say you do all this stuff for me. Bring it in. This is the chance to show me why I'm smart having bought your brand.
Right.
And brands can't move the mountain.
No,
not for everybody.
Well, and the brands who've now gone for the maximum footprint with, more brands, more density of product in that city with less demand, they have more mouths to feed, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to create a gap.
Yep. And some will survive and a lot won't.
Right. Yeah.
And so you have to this is now the time to start looking for those stones to turn over. Who's still traveling? Why would they still be traveling? How are they demographically? Where are they coming from? What's their rate resistance? And start doing your targeting marketing, not waiting for someone to save the day. There is no white horse that's going to come in and save the day. Our editor's in the room.
Yep, there he is. Yep. He's back.
So we hit the coronavirus thing. We know that it's going to be an impact to us. We know it's going to impact us, even if it was getting better tomorrow. It's still going to impact us for the next 9 days.
Well, and the downside, and the reason markets are reacting like this, if this continues to be an extended thing, a lot of, say, the base for even medications, very common medications used by a lot of people, the supply chain goes back to that source materials coming from China, right? All of a sudden you have a disruption of that supply chain. You go, hey, I need my XYZ my blood pressure medicine, my whatever. They go, yeah, we don't have that. Yeah. Right. That's not good. There are lots of carry-on effects here. The scariest one is, and I know there's been some jokes about this, but generally what happens with flu season, when weather gets warmer and things like that, it decreases, right? You don't have as many people in enclosed spaces and things like that, right? So, but then it comes back. So you could very well have a scenario where I think the Summer Olympics are in question. That will certainly be a very, very high profile cancellation if that happens. I can't imagine them running it. I don't know. That's all of a sudden you have the world's best athletes all getting sick. That's not a good outcome. So you wind up with that. But then in the fall, basically flu season starts kicking up again. And so I think the big fear is, the worst case scenario is all of a sudden the fall, this thing really starts going, it's not over. And then you have very, very serious.
Well, and again, we're not fear mongering, and we're not trying to just regurgitate the general news that we're all seeing. No, but there is the fact that they did talk about this being a permanent feature in our annual cycle.
That's right. Yeah, it certainly has all of those attributes. And on the little newsletter that I sent out, I patterned it after our regular one, where we have the various products and distribution and marketing and tech, that sort of thing. I have the boop, which is the good news story. Well, one of it is they have mapped. The only thing I could think about coronavirus was that they had mapped the protein. And they figured out its structure. But with that, that is a big problem. So now with a vaccine's probably a year off. Once you do reasonable, clinical trials, make sure that it's effective, produce it and distribute it, though that takes a while, sort of thing. And so all of a sudden you're probably looking at a kind of a down year for that if this thing starts to really rock and roll. And you have horrible situations. You've got Amazon. Amazon's trying to crack down on people profiteering from masks and things like that. These masks don't work. Generally speaking, you need an N95 mask, and those should be going to healthcare workers. You should not, having 3 cases of them at home for yourself is not the best thing for society. It's like maybe get those 3 cases into a hospital where they can be used by people who really need them.
Yeah.
So
1,000 people quarantined in Germany, Louis said.
Yeah. No, it's a bad.
Here's,
it's
you know,
a
like,
challenging situation, and the travel industry is in the crosshairs of this because
we're the canary in the coal mine with this right now.
The classic example, a Korean Airlines flight attendant doing her job went to Israel, flew at least a couple flights on 400-seat aircraft to the U.S. and had no symptoms. Why would you ever, she's not an evil person. She didn't ask for this disease. She certainly did not want it and was just doing her job. And now all of a sudden you have, who was she in contact with? Were people, in fact, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say, right? And so,
and now they're talking about the news where people were exposed to it without proper equipment.
Right.
And then, of course, again, we go back to Zuck's, feeble attempt at trying to mitigate some of the mongering that's going on Facebook of all the conspiracy theories they're for it, and that doesn't help the situation or anything like that.
No. The conspiracy theory is, hey, Mother Nature has a situation here where this virus came out, and thank goodness it's not as bad as SARS or MERS. Right, which are still very, very
higher
bad
fatality percentage. Yes.
The MERS one is just crazy high, right? Yeah. And it's pretty much isolated the Middle East, and if you interact with camels or something like that, right? That's like the high risk population, but very, very high. But yeah, I mean, this one shouldn't be taken too lightly. I mean, not to cause panic, but if they're saying it's like right now it's a 2% fatality rate approximately, that will probably drop as more cases are understood.
By numerics,
people who had it wasn't, sort of thing. But again,
the number of deaths will continue to grow as well. I mean,
and what happens is even at 1% or 2%, hopefully, on our show, right? If we have 10 hosts, who I don't know where the other 8 are, but let's not go into that.
We will later.
No, but with that, you go, wow, with 10 people, well, none of us will be affected. Very perhaps none of the family members, direct family members will be affected, but we will probably know someone who's been affected, and not just affected, but died of this. That's a bad situation, even for these kind of mild pandemics. And unfortunately, the human cost and what you're doing is the big issue, and everybody's looking at the stock markets, right? And it's like, hey, that's secondary stuff, folks. That's that's not the core issue here. It's how do you keep people safe? How do you keep them healthy? And that's what everybody should be focused on. And if the hotels, let me tell you, training your staff, hugely important, right? Because again, they are, especially housekeepers, they are going to be in contact with a lot of people on a daily basis, and just the hand washing, not touching your face and eyes, and not being within 3 feet, and how you deal with surfaces, how you disinfect, sort of things. That training, critically important in an industry that was strapped for getting employees, right? Because unemployment was so low, and training was kind of hit or miss. Because hey, let's get these people in. We need to go do this. We'll teach them the details later. That's bad. So hoteliers, you need to protect your employees. You need to protect your guests, and having expertise in that area is very, very challenging. So yeah, I wish Kat was on the show. I'm not sure what HOA if what they're doing in this particular case to try to help and provide resources to their members, but that is a very, very key consideration to help not spread things further.
And I mean, that brings into question even the fact that they have a conference coming up in Orlando in April, and by that point we are going to be neck deep in the concerns of cancellations. We're talking about the fact as preventative measures is don't go to the large gatherings, conferences. That was one of the first things.
Absolutely. Yeah, group travel. I've got to think the cancellation rates are going to be off the charts at this point.
Yeah.
Because now, and I don't know, airlines are softening now their cancellation policies, for this, and they're letting people out of it, because you have to. If you have a health emergency, you can't just say you're going to lose your money by doing. That is not a good outcome.
Right.
As a business. So yeah, the hoteliers are going to have to deal with this, and I think it's going to be tough, and I don't think it's going to go away. Even with working with some of the equity analysts that I talked to at the beginning, it was like, boy, this is a week-to-week thing. You've got to look where these numbers are headed. And once that happens, it's a 90-day recovery after the last incremental case is up, right? Once there are 0 new cases, then things will come back to normal for the travel industry. But it's a 90-day, at least a 90-day lag after that. So right now we're in the exact opposite of that. I did throw a link up, which is the Worldometers. It's just, they have a whole bunch of stats that are broken out. It's not a lot of editorializing on it, but these are the folks who are putting this together are being fairly responsible. If numbers are unreliable, they're pulling those graphs and saying, wait a second, there's some things until this stabilizes, we won't report these numbers. But they've had some very, very good, consistent graphing of what's going on. And you look at that page, it's a great one to have bookmarked, and you can see what's going on for cases in China, outside China, the severity, fatality rates, things like that, just to kind of keep apprised of what's happening. Pie charts on where the growth is in the number of cases and things like that. And it's fascinating and a little bit terrifying. So
At the same time, yes.
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, I mean, we did talk about it, and we also talked about some things you should consider in your business profiling going forward to make sure that you are prepared for having answers to what do we do next, or how can we help ourselves. And then, of course, there always has to be the crash kits as if this doesn't work, what do we have to start making decisions on? Those are things that, depending upon the impact to your business based on your destination and so forth, have to be in a thoughtful plan now, because knee-jerk is not going to be helpful.
And a lot of these practices should be standard operating procedures for how your housekeepers clean the rooms and how you interact with guests, and having hand sanitizer, at the desk and things like that. For your staff, that it's very, very important to stop the spread, and even just to keep your staff healthy, even aside from the coronavirus threat. Those sorts of things they're absolutely essential core operating skills that again, sometimes I think just kind of fall by the wayside. Right.
Well, see, when I travel, I always put a mask on anyway when I'm on a plane, because especially during flu season, because I do so much traveling, I've always felt that it helped, because the old adage, if somebody sneezes behind you, you can go 40 feet in front of them. And for me, being on the plane with one of those masks on, I have a fabric mask with a carbon fiber in it.
Like an N95, right?
Yeah,
and if you have an N95 mask, that will filter out 95% of the stuff that's coming.
And I like it because when I snore, people can't tell it's me because I just have a mask on.
I always thought you wore the mask from the days of really commandeering the beverage cart and taking all those little minis and like stealing the money from the flight attendant, that sort of thing for the liquor sales and headset sales.
There is some secondary benefits to having a mask on that we can't discuss in open conversation. But there's always good stuff to that. But yes, and I know that it's not our defense for it, but the tough part to this is the reality from a personal perspective that we have to be more mindful of our hygiene, our washing of our hands, our touching of our faces, kind of back to the old school, what mom used to tell you, when you have a cold, don't go above the neck touching anything, and keep your hands washed. And use soap. These disinfectant wipes they don't kill everything.
Right.
They help with things, but they don't kill everything. Yeah. And being mindful that, when like next week when I go to San Antonio, I love giving hugs. You know what? Not going to happen. I'm not going to shake people's hands. I'm going to be saying hi.
Well, that's an upside, Loren.
Yeah.
Loren won't be hugging.
If Holly was on the show, she'd be thankful.
Now you won't. Yeah. Now you won't feel as awkward when you try to avoid Loren's hug.
I chase you down anyway, but no.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is one of those things because we're in that time of uncertainty as to how it's convenient. And you said that people can carry this around with no symptoms visible,
Right.
and all of a sudden, 14 days later, boom, you get it from them.
Well,
and they may still not have it. That's the thing. It's like any flu.
Yeah, and again, because I work with this one particular group where I kind of get paid to keep up on this stuff, so I'm not an expert in it. But the things coming out of China, it's very interesting, impacting men much more than women. But the fact was, former emphysema, people who smoked a lot, because it's a respiratory illness, all of a sudden. Huge, and I didn't know in China, something like 78% of men smoke and 2% of women. It's just a huge gender gap in terms of smoking, which I had no idea of, but it's all the men who are dying. If your lungs are in bad shape, right? That's exactly, the older you are, the greater the chance, and kind of the worse shape your lungs are in. Or the worse your health, certainly people who are, their immune systems are compromised. That's a challenge as well. So, it's a scary thing.
Let's move on to some other interesting ones. You have great
more fun, uplifting news.
Yeah, more fun, uplifting news. Well, let's talk about Expedia a little bit. Since you mentioned it a little earlier, might as well jump down to intermediaries and distribution a little bit. Okay. Expedia cutting 3,000 jobs following a disappointing year.
Well, okay. Yeah, and so we discussed this before, and I think I mentioned on an earlier show that, and here I'll post the link to it. This was Barry Diller being, the dad who steps in and goes, "Kid, you got to start." The high school parent who sits in and goes, "You've got to stop doing this. You're going to ruin your life. So I'm taking away the car keys." Right. That was kind of the analogy I was using. It's different, right? Dad now not just took away the car keys, but he sent the family pet upstate to a farm.
No, he grounded everybody.
He euthanized grandma, right? And he's basically saying, the infant was only in the car seat, for a little while when he went into the store to get cigarettes, right? Barry is just, 12,000 folks. That is a big, or 12%, 3,000 jobs, 12%, sorry, not 12,000. See, that's how fake news gets started. What? 9,000 more people?
Oh my God.
Yeah, 12%. That is a big, deep cut. And now Booking is looking at that going, oh, we need to go do that, too, because again, Wall Street's looking, you've got the coronavirus fear, all sorts of things, and you start getting this kind of aggressive spiral. So
all the companies that were, I think of other companies, I'm not going to name them by name at this point, but these companies that are running on thin ice with venture capital money already, and they're running and just burning money.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you have this black swan event where they can't substantiate anything because they can't even generate the business to try to cover what they're doing.
Oh yeah, rapid growth in this scenario is tough, right?
Yeah.
So that's
unless you're making masks or hazmat suits or viral, serum thing.
Yeah.
But the idea of this is that companies are going to have this happen. So, here we are, we have somebody in the office that's talking about great unemployment and how perfect the world is and how much in control they are. And you have this precipice where the market is spiraling. Concerns, industries are going to start.
But the market was structurally and intentionally overheated, right? I mean, that was the strategy. And so, and because of that, yeah, I mean, if you keep pushing up something that high and you're standing on the top of the ladder on your tiptoes with the chair, on the chair, balancing something out there, it's a longer way to fall. So, and so, everybody's looking at it going, the more you superheat it, the deeper the correction. That's a tough scenario. And all these kind of grow first, we'll figure out revenue later, that's going to stop. I mean, just look at the difference between 1999, 2000 to the 2000 to 2002, 2003 timeframe, or 2006 to 2007 versus 2008, 2009, 2010. Just the philosophical changes in business operations are daunting, right?
Mm-hmm. And we made this comment before that, and this is an article that something like there was a high percentage. I don't remember the exact number, so I'm not going to try to quote up a fake number, but a very high percentage of the people that in management and hospitality right now have never run a business in a downturn. Yeah. Well, this is the longest expansion. It was a record, right? Which is great, but again, that's a tricky, it's a tricky situation. And you think about it, and I'm not trying to be nostalgic about this, but you think of our grandparents that lived through the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. It fundamentally changed how they lived the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
Of how they saved money, how they always tried to self-sustain on some things, how they never went past their means. A lot of things that culturally came out of living through a time of nothing redefined stuff. And anybody that went through 08, 09, anyone that went through 01, 02, it leaves a memory of always wanting to make sure that you have a plan at the very least.
Right.
From a business perspective, that you have some way of looking at it, or you're proactively looking at it, where some other people are like, oh, it's like anything else. It's going to, this is just a flutter. It's an up or down. People are telling me, just ride the wave and so forth. Yeah, it's going to be an up and down, but not knowing how to, there was a lot of good intentions of people that were doing their hardest and working their butts off that still got walked up to and said, I'm sorry, Loren, but I can't afford to have you.
That's right.
Great if you are. I can't, we're at that point where we have to let someone like you go, that kind of, and you're just sitting there going, what did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong.
That's right. It's a reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, and that's fundamentally, and that's what I was saying. Businesses generally, and the prudent thing to do is actually to cut too deep, right? Because you want to look at it and go, okay, if we're going to make these changes and this is bad, do we want to do the bare minimum, or do we want to look at this to say, should we make an adjustment for the next quarter, or should we do something that would be like until the end of the year? Because then, we can recover from that, and we have the savings from doing that, right? Versus kind of dribbling along going, oh gosh, now we have even less resources available now because we were trying to make a go of this. This is now worse than we thought. That kind of scenario planning is very, very important. Not that you should overreact and just cut to the quick, but that's got to be a balanced, nuanced thing. And I think for the hospitality industry, you've got to focus on what's going on with your employees. Number one, your operational processes, and your customers, and that's you've got to put your focus on what's the best thing to do for them, and then start having discussions with your investors and things like that to say, here's what we need to do to make this stuff work.
Keeping with the theme of gloom, doom, pain, and despair. When your article, you popped up, Marriott reports Q4 results unable to predict Corona.
Oh, I just say one thing on Expedia though? And again, this was Barry coming out before the coronavirus, and I want to contrast this with Marriott. Expedia's room night growth year over year was up 11%. Right? That's not bad. Their operating income was up 94%. Right? Now their EBITDA and things like that, was only up 2% and things like that. So they didn't knock it out of the park. They had more expenses and things like that. But in terms of room night growth at 11% increases, that's not a bad business. And that's why Barry is now cutting out the fat and saying we're doing a lot of things. Oh, Kat has joined us.
Yes, I'm Kat. Hi, Kat. How are you?
Hi.
Yay.
You responded like I was saving you.
You were.
Oh my God.
For an hour now, and like, oh my God, Kat's here.
The analogy would be Loren and I being the coronavirus and you being the vaccine.
Hey, actually, I want to retro our conversation because we were talking about you.
We were.
Actually, we're talking about Alho as well, because we were talking about the impact on our industry of the proactiveness that we need to start having with our staff and our team on training people now to know that this is a part of our lives, at least for a while, and taking the initiatives of what is being done to train our housekeeping staff, our front desk staff, our point of contact people, our front, people like that will be engaged publicly with people as to, their hygiene, sanitations, cleanliness factors, engagements, all these things that now are of a concern compared to just, it's flu season, make sure you don't wipe your face and sneeze on anybody. Now we're talking about, we don't even know how we can get this from people. So what are the overt ways we have to make sure we're doing things? We didn't know if there was any AHO initiatives or anything that you're proactively looking at trying to distribute. So thanks for company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you are absolutely right. We actually, it's like red alert, all hands on deck to get information out. We are running a webinar that was actually created by Ecolab, and talking about all of that, how to address it, what happens if you have an outbreak at your property, how to assess individuals walking in, and then also keeping staff clean. We're providing other links for resources. All of that is being emailed out to our members, and some information will be on our website. But absolutely, it's no longer just like a page you turn in the newspaper. You actually have to take some action to prevent it. And about 10 minutes ago, I had a call with one of our speakers saying, hey, are you all hearing anything about your convention and it potentially getting canceled or conflicted because of the coronavirus? And I'm saying right now, we don't have any alerts on it. I did reference some of the materials Robert had sent out. Some of the statistics actually seem quite hopeful that things might improve, or there's a solution in sight, being that every case doesn't result in death. Yeah, we're raising awareness right now through our channels, social media, email, and I'm sure some of our text alerts. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of these, what we were saying before is a lot of these practices for just keeping your staff safe, for housekeeping, front desk, all those guest contact, not just the guest contact positions, even contact with other employees, right, is so important. One of the things I remember, this was, I think, 2009, we were on a cruise on the Queen Mary 2. And again, you see all these problems on cruise ships. I mean, the Diamond Princess, holy cow. I mean, I think they've now reported the 5th death, and they had over 700 cases. I mean, for a while, you had China, and then you had that one cruise ship as the most cases and deaths, now surpassed by some other countries. I think Korea has passed it, and maybe, I don't even know if Italy's. Yeah, Iran's getting up there, Italy, but the cruise ships still, higher. But on that, they didn't just have the little Purell bottles at the entrance to the, to the buffets and things. They had, as a standard operating procedure, staff who were, giving us, nope, hey, wash your hands, doing that. And you kind of looked at it, and some people were complaining, right? Oh, why do they have to do that? It's like, hang on. This is a very good and as far as I know, that's been their standard operating procedure. Yes, it's additional staff, but guess what? Everybody's healthy. Everybody, has clean hands, and the chances of doing this. And you would see, people, railings. They clean the railings continuously on every stairway and things like that. So those are important things that you have to do if you want to keep your staff and you want to keep your customers safe.
We talked a little bit, Kat, earlier on about things to do from a business perspective, how to target your business and start making plans to generate business where everyone else is running off to OTAs and dumping inventory and dropping rates, and that you should be a lot smarter than that and chase down your business based on demographics and reasons for travel and what have you. And ironically, you think about things that there's a ripple effect to this that goes beyond just whether you're going to get somebody in your door. You think about people that are in the dating cycle. Well, how is this going to impact meeting and greeting people? Going out and not knowing who you're talking to, and then wondering whether that's going to have a difference of whether I should just get off the dating scene for a little while, which changes the purpose of travel in that even. It has so many different ripple effects of, rather than make that trip to Disney World, okay, and be around 1 million people, maybe we don't. Maybe we just go camping in the middle of nowhere, Right. It's going to change the interest categorization. And you think that from an urban point of view to a suburban point of view to a rural point of view, a lot of major destination cities are going to be a little bit, and beyond the group losses, the travel destination interest. Why go to New York right now? Why put yourself in the middle of
the greater the density is a problem, right?
Right. Maybe we just don't do the big city this year. Maybe we do the little place this year. Maybe we do something a little bit more subdued. There's so many ways, and I say this not to be gloom and doom. I say this from a strategic point of view that if you're a hotel in a market that isn't in a big city right now, you should be thinking these things. How can I re-identify myself to market? And as an independent hotel, how can I substantiate what you just talked about, Robert? Without it sounding clinical, how can I talk about, and this is where social media comes in, because social media, you can bring the dialogue into your conversation in a non-offensive way, but talk about it. Like, hey guys, blah, blah, blah. One of the things we're looking at doing, we've decided that we're going to start putting this in our rooms right now. We're always going to be doing this every day in our lobby. We just bring it into dialogue. So it's not having to be a sales pitch. It doesn't have to be an ad. It doesn't have to be a notice or bulletin on our website. It can be part of our dialogue in social. You need to start those conversations now so that it's a natural conversation, so that it will be in a month from now, when we call up a hotel, we will be asking, what are you doing about this? I mean, if it's gotten to such a severity, we're going to be talking about those things as a potential guest. I want to know your team. What are they doing? What's your sanitation policies? What's your cleanliness policies? Have you had anybody sick recently? Seriously, these are questions that might come into the dialogue. Yeah. So proactiveness now is said.
Yeah, actually, because we're back, I'm going to circle back. I found I was mentioning earlier, Kat, that the Focusrite email bucket, right, which are all the analysts kind of throw in stories and talk about things like what's going on. What's happening in Europe right now, speaking of conferences, ITB Berlin, 160,000 attendees, big conference. It's next week. A lot of people are canceling and not going. It has not been canceled, as yet, but they're discussing it. This came in. Amadeus and HRS have pulled out, and they have a travel ban for the next 6 weeks. Both companies. Most companies. This is again out of the European analysts. Most companies have announced a travel ban for at least 6 weeks. Yep. Tourlane, one of the panelists next week, also canceled. Ask employees not to go to ITB. Accor has a travel ban and is not coming. And then, so they're running through that. The International Hotel Investment Forum, which normally goes right before ITB, has been canceled. Well, it's been postponed until May. And somebody just threw in the International Motor Show in Switzerland was canceled completely. 500,000 attendees.
Oh my gosh.
There's that aspect of going to a place with large density of human beings, but even before there, something like the Atlanta airport, how many people are cycling through there from how many different countries? I mean, before even getting to your destination, that's another area. And each plane is an incubator for whatever's going on. And all you need is one person. I don't know if,
and we mentioned the Korean Airlines flight attendant who the spread in now Israel was traced back to a Korean Airlines flight attendant who was just doing her job, was asymptomatic. I mean, why would she not go to work, right? Why would you not fly the flight? But all of a sudden, you now have 30 cases in Israel, right? Who, were exposed apparently on that. And she flew on planes, a couple of them to Los Angeles, right? 400-seat, aircraft and things like that. You just don't know. It's hit or miss. It isn't like, she interacted with other employees. She interacted, or, other flight crew, passengers in different way. You can't track that sort of thing down. And you can't go back and recreate it to figure it out, right? So it's a very, very challenging, situation.
Just so if you ever want to mute Robert, that little microphone over there, just hit it and it makes him go real quiet. He can't talk.
Okay, thanks.
I won't do that to you.
Hey, there's a red button. I can do much worse.
Don't punish the viewers now.
Oh, Loren, very, very important fact that we did not tell you that last week, because you dropped off, we had to stop the session, right? Naturally. So we stopped the recording, did all of that. Everybody who's on, it doesn't stop. You may stop everything, but everybody's still there. So, there is not a post-show green room. Very, very,
No
very
post-show green
important
room.
consideration.
I could have told you that. There is no post-show green room.
Okay, we didn't know. We were just trying to figure that out. Unfortunately, Louis helped us out on troubleshooting that. So
Good. But no, I don't want to make it the word gloom and doom or anything. And this is supposed to be for hospitality and how we can help it and so forth. And I know, Kat, you have concerns because you have a conference coming up as well, and I'm sure these questions are going through your mind as to what to do and to fall back. And I know from talking with HSMEI's APAC group, I'm in advanced conversations of translating their in-presence conference that they've had to relocate twice because of Hong Kong issues and then fires in Australia, that we're going to do a quasi-online combo in person. For those who do show up, they're welcome and they'll be there. But all the major sessions are going to be live casted from that, and also just live casted if the speakers aren't there as a summit, online summit, because they want the information to go out. It's not as if they're not going to, they're just shuttering up and not going to continue to try to provide education information. It's just the methodology is hard to get people when we were just talking about the first thing that they started announcing is for not to go to conferences, large group gatherings. It's like, wow, it's hard to sell tickets when you're getting on the news, people telling you not to go to groups,
Yeah, and then you're concerned as the person working the event too. You're like, well, I don't know if I want to go.
What I'm exposing myself to by having all these people show up from gosh knows everywhere. So it's a terrible thing not to know the certainty of how this gets transmitted and the frequency or the signs and so forth. And it creates that uncertainty. And we talk about it from the depression of demand for travel, which ironically is such an amazing thing, since that was the topic you gave me at the conference, how to generate revenue in a diminished demand. So,
Kat, oh my God, Loren has created this coronavirus thing as an example for his presentation. Loren, don't do things like that. Loren he couldn't find the proper case study, so he made one.
He created one. A worldwide disaster.
Worldwide.
Yep, it's got to be bigger. I can't find the right kind of big one that would really be laid out.
The Black Plague just has way too much hype.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do away with
find
that.
something different. Got to find something different.
Exactly. Oh boy.
I brought up the Marriott one, which we didn't really quite touch on. We were talking about Expedia's performance of room night volume up 11%, which is pretty good. And Barry is saying that is not good enough. We are a fat bloated organization. Let's cut 12% of the staff. And then you have Marriott, and Marriott's results maybe not quite that robust, right? Because they're I think RevPAR was up 1% maybe, sort of thing. So basically a completely flat, almost flat business, which is not great. So we were talking a little bit about also, sorry to keep going backwards, but just make you up to speed with some of the things we've touched on is what we're seeing already is the thing that people said they would never do, and they're already doing it. They're running over to the OTAs and they're just dumping inventory in, and they're dropping their rates, and they're trying to maintain occupancy at all costs. And it's exactly what they all said they wouldn't do. And from a strategic point of view, when we're talking about things that the industry should do, brand is going to be in a very precarious situation, Marriott included, especially Marriott being the size that it is, that all of its ownership is going to turn to them going, hey, all right, brand, what are you doing for me? Here's the situation. What do you told us that you handle our marketing, your brand contribution. What are you going to do? And as Robert pointed out eloquently, they can't save everybody. And nor can they even save someone in some circumstances, because by the time they move the mountain, for some, it's going to be such a bloodbath of loss of demand for so many markets. They're going to be reactionary. They're going to try to appease ownerships based on priority of relationships, and it's going to turn into this mess. Meanwhile, the hotelier who's sitting there going, I need business in my door, and the brand isn't even answering my phone calls. So this is a interesting time for independent hotels that are strategic, that are proactive, that are knowledgeable about who they're trying to get into market to target what they're doing effectively. Because as we talked about, where the shift in demand from maybe metro areas to less dense populations, change in profiles of travel, because as people reduce their options, like somebody's going to go to Italy, now they're not, but they still want to go somewhere. Yep. So without it sounding opportunistic, putting a messaging out about the value proposition you have in a way that's understood as an alternative destination is smart in that sense. I mean, you're still doing a business, you're still running a business, you still have to make payroll. So those things.
Sounds like now is the time to really look into what your resources are outside of your brand to make it happen. What relationships have you personally built? Have you been waiting to create that relationship with the police department? Maybe there's something more there, but tapping into things you have not tried before. We talked about maybe 2 calls ago, your cancellations list, that there's 8% sitting in there. At this point, it might be even more. And things like, if the destination, you find that they stop going to Italy, you maybe have an Italy-themed night at your hotel.
That's right.
Do something to turn your location into the destination, but think outside the box, of course, if you're branded within your parameters. But there's still opportunity to tap into the market without going to discounting immediately, which I know you said is what everybody said they weren't going to do. But
right.
It's that knee-jerk reaction. I'll just drop right in the yard.
It's their first reaction is like, I want to drop a rate. And I was mentioning to Robert earlier also is that when you look at the online platforms for Expedia and Booking.com for paid ads, they've halved their increase in price already because of the demand factor. That where it was maybe $3 a click before, it's now $5 a click. Because everybody's jumping on it. And I even see notifications from TDCs and CVBs that are encouraging the hoteliers in their market to dedicate themselves to offering rate deals for March on the third-party platforms. And I'm like, wow, are you stoking the fire for that? I mean, that's your strategic answer. You're the destination authority, and the first thing you tell everybody is grab into lifeboats. It's like, what about redefining your market message to destination? What about finding the aspects of travel that are valuable to people for your market? Do your job, so to speak, and do better than just saying, get off the boat. It just, and then like what I was also mentioning earlier, that a very large percentage of management in our industry right now have never worked through a down economy.
Right.
And that's scary because the people that have will be very, very valuable. And the people that don't have a hospitality skill, if you should have to diminish your staff and you're brought in straight into the level of your office position and you don't know how to run a front desk or clean a room, and you're reducing staff and you need to start multitasking, you may be let go in favor of somebody else that does have that skill set. So
start shadowing your folks right now.
Start learning how to pop those beds.
Right? Get those corners just right. But on our
hospital corners.
Yes, in our young professional hotelier session at the convention, we have a lineup of young professional successful folks that have gone through the development phases and different things, but have proven their success in the industry. And one of the things that they brought up on the call, our prep call, was that some of them on the panel have actually gone through or a recovery from a recession, whereas others were not involved in the industry as much at that time, but their perspectives are different, especially going into the conversation we plan to at the convention, where there's so much uncertainty with the overall market, be it one with the elections, the political environment, just where we were on the hiring and wage issues, and now with this coronavirus and whatever else might come from it. There's a lot of challenges to suggest that the market is going to continue having a big hit. Nothing's really showing that there's a win, rapidly approaching. But having the experience of going through a recession or a downturn, and like you're saying, knowing that, if we scale back, it doesn't mean that it's done and we're never going to be successful again. It's just in the interim, you have to make it happen. In like a weird comparison, recently I heard an interview by a young lady that had to learn how to hold her breath for 5 minutes underwater. And one of the things that they taught them is
She had to learn how to do that.
Yeah, it was for a big role on. She was in a movie.
Oh, just trying to figure out the use case for that.
But what I found interesting is one of the coachings that they told her is around 4 minutes, your body is going to start to convulse, but you still have about 45 seconds worth of air left in you. So if you get past all of the convulsions and whatever your body is naturally doing, you're still going to make it, and you have some time still to persevere, go beyond. So
That's
we're not even to that point.
That's the whole David Blaine thing on training your body. I mean, he does these crazies, and then some of it tricks and things like that. But a lot of it just winds up, training his body to, respond to, how do you reduce your need for oxygen? How do you do that? And maybe that is a good analogy for how the hotel industry needs to.
It's a survival method. It
exactly. You got to figure out
thrive through it.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Very, very true. Well, it's going to be an interesting time, as it already has started to be, because this has already begun to create its impact. We already had these discussions a couple of weeks back when it was the what if scenario discussion. And I know from some of my clients in some markets that had connections to certain segments of travel from the East and the impact that it was already creating for them in the sense of diminished and shutting down their ability to travel or have them travel from the APAC area. And now with the turn of events in California with the young woman that they don't know how she got it, not having been in the normal circumstances of how it's usually being caught. That's what created maybe this pivot point in how the markets have shifted and so forth. It's a matter, as they all are saying, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. It's just it's going to spread. It's going to be in that commonality and everything else. And what we do about it is now what we get paid to do, which is being thoughtful enough to understand what metrics we need to consider and what steps we need to plan for. So it can't be that surprise factor.
And we're talking about Marriott's earnings, versus Expedia. So Expedia had 11% room night growth. Marriott last year, now they didn't really explain what their room night growth is. They talked about occupancy and ADR and things like that. But their RevPAR for the year was up in real dollars, right? So no currency impact, was up 0.9%. And as far as I can tell, that's all rate. So they may have actually had a negative impact on occupancy, which is not great. And that's before this disruption. So I've got to think the major hotel groups, if Wall Street's looking at it going, hey, online travel agencies, Expedia cut 12%. Booking.com is following suit. These major hotel brands, again, are starting to behave much more like an online travel agency in terms of their business models than certainly hotel operations. That's very, very different businesses. I think you can start expecting, the hotel industry to start reacting in kind. And I think those impacts may have predated the coronavirus stuff, just of what's going on in terms of again, kind of the first domino being Barry Diller at Expedia, and we'll have to see. So I would not expect huge hiring binges for the major hotel groups at this point, and we'll see, if some of them decide, okay, we're going to start making cuts now.
Well, that brings up. But when you're talking about this, and this talks about strategy when it comes to reaction, your article that you had on OTAs and metasearch dominate Google's hotel related keywords, it is an avenue of opportunity that there's threefold to this, and I'll just, the way I look at it, you have the automated, it's done for you. You have the engaged, you're doing it, and then you have the very strategic, which is you're modifying it to your actual concurrent strategies of paid campaigns and so forth, which is the more aggressive and better refined. What is happening, what is in the industry, I've complained about a long time, is there's a complacency factor. You hire an agency, a large agency, whether it's a Sendine, a Travel Click, a Milestone, whatever, and you feel there's an automation value to that. You're not having to deal with the small moving pieces. That instead, it's being handled for you. And one of those things is metasearch. Mm-hmm. And what they do, what you don't realize that they do, is that they're on a commission model, which means they're always going to feature your brand persistently, because that's the highest conversion opportunity for them to make the most amount of commission. You see it as a bonus that you're getting this business from this platform when it was already your business to have. And now you're paying a commission piece for it, plus service fees for it. So you're getting double banged on this. The next level is where you take it and you have an agency run this for you, but they do the same thing in a different way. They may be more strategic about what they bid on. They may not be as commission-based, but they are fee-based. And they're still going to go for the results to impress. They're still going to go for the large branding opportunities to identify their success with you. The real best way is when you're doing it in combination to your current paid strategies, where there are times where you really lean into your meta search campaign with Google, but your Google campaign is connected, because remember, Google Hotel Finder is a connected capability with your Google paid ad keyword campaigns.
Absolutely.
So you modify when you run your PPC, which is filtered targeting, with what your meta search is doing, so you're not bidding against yourself, because that's the worst of both worlds. You have an agency that's doing your PPC, pushing brand. You have them also, or a grouping of things like TravelClick or someplace that's handling your internet booking engine, doing commission-based stuff, and they're bidding for your words at the same time. You're actually paying both agencies more money to get brand business. So by bringing it down to your own level and controlling it between your own PPC and meta search, you're never bidding against yourself, and you're strategically putting yourself into the meta search market when you need that upper level discovery versus your low level conversion. So these are all smart things in this world of what's coming up that you need to start reevaluating that, I got somebody handling all that. Yeah, that's how they're handling it. And you're going to be paying a lot of money for stuff twice or a commission just because you're not handling it to your best interest. So just little things like that to consider.
Right. Yeah, because the business models are different. Their business model and how they earn. It's whenever you're dealing with an intermediary or any sort of group that you're working with, you have to understand their business model. How do they make money? What is in their best interest? And yes, they should be working for you, but that's if what you need to do is in conflict with how they get compensated. If their incentives aren't aligned with your goals, you've got to be very careful.
The worst of all three is you're bidding in OTAs, which is using your money to get into meta search. You're paying your internet booking engine provider meta search that's being paid on commissions to also be in the same meta search. So you're competing against the people you're already paying money to compete to, and your PPC is competing for the same brand terms on your alternate campaigns. You're literally playing three distributions, all the same monies, more expensively because they're bidding against each other for the very same words that you're shooting for.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of bleed that hurts businesses when it comes to margins of keeping a housekeeper on, because you're paying these commissions for stuff that you shouldn't be paying for.
That's it. Oh, actually, the other thing is just in terms of now, everybody's moving to a SaaS model for their tech stack and things like that. And hey, forget the capital expenditure of buying this thing and having an asset. We'll just rent it. Well, all those little deals that people get pitched at, it's only $5 per room per month. Guess what happens when that occupancy dries up and you don't have the guests in there? You've got that rent, right? You're paying rent on all of a sudden all this equipment or things that you need to use to run your business. You go, oh, well, I guess we'll just unplug the revenue management component or the PMS or the the point of sale system. That's that's not good.
One of the fastest maths that I ever show them is when I go through the audit process of what they're providing service profile for. And to your point, Robert, it's only $5 a room. Okay, great. What was your occupancy? 70%. Okay, so it's not $5 a room. Yeah. It's actually $15 a room. Yeah. Because the 30% you're not filling, you're paying for what the ones that you are. So it's really per head on that. Now, when you add that to your length of stay and your ADRs and so forth, what percentage are you not even? When you're only talking about top line revenue and you're ignoring where it flows to the bottom line, that's where these bleeds of 1,000 cuts happen, because that's $15 that just gets yanked out of every stay kind of thing, or $5 or $4.50.
Well, and that's per month, so multiply by 12 for the annual cost, right? And all of a sudden you're up to, wait a second, I'm paying, whatever it is, it really nets out to like $100 per. Per occupied room or something a year or something for these things.
And if you look at
I would say, so a few shows ago, we had spoken about when it comes to a period where there's a downturn in the market, or you're finding that you're not getting the same type of business. In most instances, marketing is where a lot of the hotels pull back. And Loren, you had mentioned that, all right, well, while everybody else is pulling back, I'm going to invest a little bit more and ramp it up. So in this type of situation, if somebody's looking to ramp up their marketing and their brain is going to say, well, let me just invest in additional forms of OTAs and the meta search engines, how do they strategically go after that type of investment strategy to increase their marketing while the market is going down, but not overextend themselves where they're doubling or tripling efforts?
Right. But we had an earlier conversation. I was giving the example of San Antonio, where I was watching. It was shameful to watch, but all the big boxes and all the larger, all they're doing is going into the OTA space and jacking up their profiles and their lowering rates. And I was talking about strategically for my client that's there. For March, spring break is notorious in San Antonio, where people leave San Antonio, those that live there, to go enjoy spring break at Padre Island, Corpus Christi, Galveston, what have you. So this is a strategic variation of what you just asked. We invested in demographically targeting young couples that don't want to hang around their kegger friends because they want to have a time to their own. We talked about older couples that didn't want to be around kids because it's spring break, and maybe they even converted their inventory where they lived into Airbnb, maybe not, but they didn't want to be in town. So we targeted Corpus Christi, South Padre Island, Galveston, Houston, demographically, those two categorizations, and we target them with the offer of this boutique little hotel, and enjoy San Antonio, quintessentially have a wonderful dinner at the restaurants down below. There's 2 5-star restaurants that are in the part of the hotel, but it's only a little boutique hotel. And enjoy a quiet San Antonio. Enjoy the Riverwalk without the craziness. Enjoy all the fun, the Alamo, and all the historic aspects of San Antonio. And know that it can be a romantic getaway. It can be a get out of town so we're not having to deal with the kids getaway, whatever. That's strategic. We spend not a lot of money to do that, because when you start casting down to those kind of finite filters, the cost of acquisition goes down because the audience is more qualified, so the conversions are higher. And you're not paying for, pay and spray kind of stuff where you're trying to white noise out there. So while everyone was running off to OTAs and dropping rate, we're saying, who's going to come into town at this time? And where are they? And what messaging can we give them? And we didn't lower rates and anything. We just offered packages, things that were value propositions of dinner included and so forth. You get a $50 dinner credit or food credit or liquor. It's $50 credit to the restaurant with bars and everything else, and to use it whatever you want for every person that arrives. That's nice,
Yeah.
So while everybody else is waiting to drop rate and hope that they still have occupancy demand, we're like, no, let's just go find the people we know still want to come.
Are you doing in-person meetings, or like marketing? Is it mainly emails and what you market on your website? What are your in-person outreach efforts?
Most of it's right now PPC and social. The unfortunate part of it is this hotel is just waking up to its potential, and they didn't really cultivate a good CRM database. Matter of fact, they only had 56 names. So for us,
56. Wow.
Yeah, it was like, what's your database?
A strong number.
Wow, that's a good double digits. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, right. The fun part of this is that the hotel, as it's waking up to all this, everything's upwards because they weren't doing these things, teaching the front desk to get email addresses, putting a CRM and database that converts the OTA reservation emails into real emails. So, and then first thing we do is put pixels on the website. So as people were touching the website because of our new paid campaigns, we segmented out the content to know what they were potentially interested in. So we retargeted them that way on social media, or retargeted them in paid campaigns. And as we built custom audiences, we had our first lookalike audience that we were able to build on Facebook. And now we're customizing that to spread the same message for people that may have never touched our website, but are within 1% the same of the people that did. And we're messaging them geographically and demographically. Those are the finite sharp points to the pencil of identifying them. So mainly, to answer your question, it's PPC and social engagement and creating storylines now, talking about offering things now and speaking to them demographically by those filters.
Are you already incorporating anything related to the coronavirus, like what you were saying, hey, everybody has hand sanities, or when you come into the lobby, there's some
actually, I'm going to be there next week in person. I'm going to be sitting down with the hotel manager and discussing how we can start creating the dialogue about that. The worst thing to ever do is offer something or talk about something that we don't know we can fulfill yet. And I haven't, although I've had the conversation with the property, I haven't had confirmation that they have instigated or started these things as of yet. They are just literally this past week, we talked about, we need to start identifying what we're doing in a way that makes sense when we talk about it. That we are we changed our sanitation policies, or we changed our our process in the rooms. The restaurants, what are they doing differently? We have that. I have all those discussions slated for next week when I'm there to see what we can identify as conversation points to start talking about them on social. Yeah.
Interesting. And the other, have you had any calls from potential guests about the virus and what you all are doing?
I've asked them to let me know, and then same team. Well, my clients in Vancouver have, but not in San Antonio as of yet. San Antonio, unfortunately, because it's one of the military bases that people were brought over to, there was a lot of conspiracy theory junk floating around of, well, what about people that are treating them and they go back into town? And, there's these sidebar conversations and so forth. So there is the perception that there's always a concern, but it hasn't affected the fact that people are calling and saying, hey, I'm just not going to come to San Antonio because I think it's too close to the problem. But in Vancouver, because of the large Chinese community and the fact that it's the gateway to the east for Canada and so forth, there is, flat out, the hotel owners in Vancouver, there's an amazing Asian market in Vancouver. Massive. It's one of the coolest places to go to. He says, Loren, I walked through the other day. I didn't see anybody.
Right.
And the people that were trying to sell stuff were like, hey, before we can give you the time of day. And I'm like, come on. There's just no, and the Chinese restaurants, Korean restaurants, nobody's going. And it's all, unfortunately, association of the it doesn't mean that the restaurant owner just came back from Korea, but they are equating these things and they're immediately associating, oh, well, it's in South Korea, so we're not going to go to a Korean restaurant. What? That's just super, because of the unknown. So, yeah, it does affect in that sense.
Okay. Well, that's good in a way that you haven't been hearing too much from.
Not yet. I think given as we've been talking today, as the persistence of the issue and the expansion of it grows, I think this will come into general dialogue. I think it will become a part of the vernacular between guests' curiosity, questioning, and affirmation, and industries responding to it, realizing that this is a concern enough that they have to bring it in front of rather than wait for it to be asked. So
I had another question for you gentlemen. I know Stuart was going to be on to add some flavor today. But on the topic of this, there's one, we're talking about basically how to secure your asset, your current investment, how to really make sure that you're getting the most out of it. But I recently had quite a few hoteliers talking to me about interest in diversifying their income streams and what they are investing in. So not just adding another property to the portfolio, but going beyond that. So given the current industry stresses and challenges we're seeing, you're not going to go open a Korean barbecue restaurant right now. But are there any other thoughts as to what would be a smart investment direction to go in given what the market is looking like? Like maybe those masks.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
actually, the masks is more like not necessarily the producing them, but the selling of them is the distribution end are the guys who are making a fortune now, which is not necessarily that great. That's a very interesting question, because it's like where should I start putting my I start putting my money?
If somebody had that check written out and they're ready to sign it, but now,
Bitcoin doesn't look like it's the safe haven that some people were touting it to be. So we'll scratch that one off the list.
I don't think currencies are going to have the impact on this at all in that sense, because all economies, the tide's dropping for everybody. So it's not a matter of one currency dominating another because of economic downturns on their countries. I think to answer your question about some things where there's always risk, there's always opportunity. Even the markets that have diminished their values because they're considered to be the impacted industries, buy them when they're low. That's the typical adage, right?
Actually, that would be my point is like save your money and get more hotel, try to buy at the bottom. Sort of thing. Because those are the folks who make the real money when sentiment is absolutely at the bottom and everybody's out and things have cratered. All of a sudden, all these assets, you get people, they're over leveraged, whatever the case may be, who need to make bad deals just to clean up their balance sheet, just to do whatever. And all of a sudden, that's if you have the resources, then you will do well on the way out. So.
Yeah, and if you look at the fact that opportunity isn't because of bad company strategy performance, like they totally messed up and they got totally fined and they lost their asset value and all this other stuff. It's because the economies for it went down and they were just one of the economies that were impacted by it. If you're looking to hoteliers for acquisition and moving into space, it's the same advice I give about, dialing up your advertising and gaining more land when everybody else has retreated.
Yeah.
From marketing perspective, I think one of the most frustrating points I ever had when I worked for an ownership group in '08 was they did what everybody else did, which I was fighting for inches in my comp set for market voice. And all of a sudden they stopped spending, and I could take over the whole market with what I was spending beforehand. But my ownership told me the same thing that the other ownerships told everybody else. Nope, we're not spending on marketing. Close down the hatches. We're going to ride this through. And I'm sitting there going, my God, we could dominate our market. By the time everything comes back, we would be the voice of the industry for this market. We would be the leader in all of this. So don't not be reckless, but to take opportunity at its face value, that you have the opportunity to step into maybe a market space where a hotel, just as Robert said, may have been one of the ones that were culled for poor performance and are open to take a very good rate for it, or to expand your opportunity of space in that market. And because you know the market well enough that you know that if you had that asset, you could really leverage it when the demand returns. Those are the opportunities that are available. Those are the ones that you're saying, my gosh, I knew they weren't being very good about their operation and they're getting volatile. Maybe I can step in and save it and get a huge chunk out of it. And when it comes back, I can influence its better performance. Yeah. Those are opportunities by far.
Everything that I see, that's a great question. Everything that I see is people flocking to, virtual products, right? So Netflix, right? People are saying this whole thing, if people wind up not going out, all of a sudden, a lot of service industry things, all the sort of public spaces, dining,
delivery
entertainment,
services,
all that delivery service. Yeah. But still, even to have things delivered, that's a tough area. So it's like Zoom, right? For virtual meetings. Yeah. Their shares are going up. Netflix, all those sorts of things where you can be isolated within your home. But, yeah, that's an interesting one for hotel owners because again, their skill set is real estate, their experience. Or my last recommendation would be like go dive off into an industry where you have no background or expertise in it. That's a recipe for disaster. So
now, from a staffing point of view, should it get darker and should it get more meaningful where companies are having to begin to diminish their staffs into the cutting zone of people that are highly talented just because they can't maintain, there's very excellent talented people that are working at questionably operated businesses.
Yeah.
And the good economy hid that. When there's revenue flowing, everybody doesn't look at the ugly stuff. Everybody's happy. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's when the tide drops and you see all the stuff on the bottom of the lake that you're like, whoa. So you have very good talented people that if you're a well-run business and you're surviving well and your competitors who are operationally deficient aren't, but there's some incredibly talented people that are working for them, that might be an opportunity that if they're in jeopardy of their positions, this might be the opportunity to pick them up and say, I can still keep you busy over here, and reshift. It's kind of like, the sports teams, buy out the good, the teams that never seem to succeed, but always have the first draft picks, trade them out, get, and you never know. So, like I said, any downturn like this, there are aspects of it that are for people to look at it with a clear eye and say, hey, you know what? I can probably move into the market a little stronger. Maybe if I just keep spending what I'm spending because I can afford to, I can gain more market share, voice of volume, whatever have you. Realistically, obviously, if there's nobody coming to your market because you're a ground zero quarantine city, I wouldn't be spending money on marketing.
Or another hotel.
Or another hotel. At that point, it's like, you know what? We just got to stay at home until they tell us it's okay to walk the streets.
And the one to stay away from are all the groups who've been going out and acquiring, whatever, luxury, condo units and things like that, right? They've been buying buildings going, we will strike long-term leases in this or acquire this, and then we'll sell it out as hotel rooms. That business model, when occupancy drops, that is a really, really bad one. Right. So
you got to figure also too, this is going to affect the Airbnb community. Do you really want strangers staying in your stuff now?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
It's bad, quote, bad enough. It's already, but hotels are built to create efficiencies of cleanliness and sanitation. Mm-hmm. Mom and pop homes that you're giving your spare room or selling the house to, that's not professional cleaning. There's cleaning teams. Businesses have burgeoned around Airbnb that they're in markets where there's just cleaning services for Airbnb inventory. Yeah, but there's no mitigation, there's no regulation, there's no verification, there's no authentication.
It's all your stuff.
Yeah. So
It's your stuff. It's not
Yeah.
like the vacation rental property. Like, okay, that's it. Theoretically, yeah, I'm staying with a neighbor or whatever, renting the place out. Now I'll come back in. It's like, yikes. Maybe I need to stay out for how long? 2 weeks, 3 weeks for not
that's
good.
opportunity too, from a hotelier's point of view. If that's going to impact the demand to your elastic dynamic inventory in market, that's a strategy value.
Yeah.
And two, for anyone that's wanting to get out of a market because of I'm just thinking through as I'm talking, but say for instance, there's a ground zero city that happens, Dallas. Robert unfortunately, started it in Dallas.
Sorry, what?
Okay. And maybe you want to just leave the city for a period of time. If you change and do your length of stay strategy, saying, look, come and stay with us, and make it a monthly, make it a weekly, or whatever it is, if you want to, as a means of using your inventory where you can't sell transient for it right now. But now it's a contained, qualified space that they know that can be maintained and cleaned. Maybe they want to keep it
contained, and you just got people from Dallas who might have the thing.
Yeah, well, Robert, you're not leaving the city. You're staying there in ground zero.
This is a very, very complex.
It is
situation.
But people are going to react differently. Yeah. And the thing I'm amazed with is when hurricanes come down here, and we always think that we're unique in how we think of stuff like, oh, I'm going to go do this and get gas now before anybody else does. And you go to the gas station, and then there's a mile-long line. You're not as unique as you think you are.
Well, and that's the worst thing, right? Because everybody stocks up, and they go, I'm going to make sure I have a full tank of gas. It's like, no, just kind of you want society to be reasonable. So now you have all these people stockpiling these N95 masks, which are kind of the ones the healthcare workers need. It's like, no, you don't really need one of those because you don't even know how to wear it properly, right? You probably aren't going to come in contact. You have zero, utility for that item, but now you got 100 of them because you don't know how long this is going to be. It's just ridiculous. You have all these market inefficiencies that come into play as well. And yeah, I mean, we traded from Hurricane Rita in Houston, which was an unmitigated, just the numbers of cars that were parked on highways for like 6-8 hours, unable to move, things like that. But yeah, just irrational behavior, bad decisions, bad planning, all those sorts of things. Don't help. So, what do you say? The hotel, try to keep a handle on this and not grossly overreact, but you've got to try to make good. My point is probably try to make good business decisions and then try to do what's best for the community. Try to really help out and not just, lock your doors from people who need it. What can you do for healthcare workers and emergency responders, things like that, and set up bases of operations. And, if you aren't full, what can you do to help out? I guess would be I
think one of the first things we're going to see
example
is, the thermometers that you just touch on your forehead now. I have one because if we get sick, I want to see what the temperature is. I think we're going to start seeing businesses make that a criteria for being able to be allowed to come to work.
Well, and there are good ones and bad ones on those too, though. It's only certain, there's a particular kind that, that works properly, which is the ones you see in doctors. A lot of these other ones that are sold, grossly inaccurate, right? You can't, they don't tell you anything.
Something's probably going to start happening to qualify. You asked what things hotels can start doing to show proactiveness with this as this continues to grow in concern. I think you'll see that hotels will start talking about the fact that they do a temperature check on all staff as they come in to make sure that we're not bringing somebody in that is potentially or is trying to hide it or whatever. Okay. I think we're going to see that initially some companies may not penalize employees to stay at home, even though they can't work by being at home, where they want to retain their staff and like, hey, Miss Housekeeper, if you are feeling bad and you're going to try to come in because you think you're going to lose your job, you're not going to lose your job. There might be that first level of please stay home for this. Of course, there's always abuse aspects of this, but for the most part, I think there's see some of these proactive things happening to it. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of UV light usages in rooms like hospitals use, where they're going to start talking about their increased sanitation aspect of touch points. Remember when the news went around about the crudiness of the TV remotes for bad reasons? One of the pushbacks was they started showing disposable ones that were sanitized. those collar sleeves on them. You're going to see those things probably creep back into the aspects of the hotels to show they're responding to the issues like that.
Yeah.
Whether they wash the door handles persistently, whether they facilitate the clean, the room itself. So those things will probably start coming into discussion. I know I'm going to start including them in my discussions with my hotels, because we need to start showing that we're not head in the sand. Oh, it's not us, it's them. That's not reasonably realistic. And by the same token, we're not going to say that we're planning for it because we have a reason to. We're planning for it because it's a concern. I mean, the messaging has to be good. You can't be doing it from a reactionary point of view, because then people think you're hiding something. If you do it from proactive, we are addressing this because we know this is a concern to travelers at this point. That makes it a little bit more understandable, rather than, and then we're doing this, and be like, why are they doing all that stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
What's already there that I want to
know? What? The front desk team in the hazmat.
Oh,
yeah, we don't want to have front desk agents in hazmat. It's not a good thing.
So what you also just highlighted, Loren, which is pretty cool, is a USP. You mentioned how Airbnb, you don't know who's coming and what's showing up and what's being left there when they leave. Mm-hmm. But you do have a much more controlled environment with your hotel. So you have somewhat found an angle to, one, make yourself much more attractive, but two, the lack of legislation with Airbnb now, this is the time that it will start to bite them. Because it's a great model and everything is fine, and you have guests that you don't need to, take a blood sample from. But I think would be opportunistic in this, and I mean this sincerely, is the pod hotels. Because of the efficiency of the ability to clean. One of the things that I know, the combination thereof is, the New York pod hotel was talking about the fact that Japan in Tokyo, the pod hotel that's at the airport there, they you've seen in the news where they have these UV lights that go into a medical room and it sanitizes the room based on the UV light. And the pod hotel in Tokyo had it where once the pod was used, this thing would go in and insert itself into the pod and do the same thing with the sanitation all the way back out to sanitize the pod. That's a highlight feature for those things now. That's all of a sudden, guess what? If you really have to travel and you're truly concerned about this in high-risk zones, which we're going to have strata. We're going to have cities to stay away from. We're going to have cities that are cautionary, and places that still haven't had an impact that you're really worried about, but you're just going to be thoughtful. We're going to have those kind of things as this spreads. With what happened in California, I'm sure a lot of people going, maybe not wine country this year. Just for no other reason other than it's roughly close to that. I mean, not a lot of people want to put themselves at risk, whether they're at a high risk or not, whether they're old like Robert, and they have to worry about these things.
What are you saying?
And you were a heavy smoker.
When these whippersnappers don't speak up.
You're a heavy smoker too, weren't you? You're in double trouble.
Hey, I want you to know, yes, I smoked in 5th grade, but 6th grade cold. Not since. So.
Yeah, but that's not all the pot and marijuana you do. You kept that going.
Oh, God. It's okay based on what state he lives in, Like,
yeah. Well, okay, since we're completely devolving here, here's a really bizarre, a very bizarre thought. Pandemic hits, and a big problem are hospital beds, right? Availability. Mm-hmm. Right. So do you have some hoteliers who go, people aren't traveling, I've got this wing unit. I don't think wing may not work. It may be full, full thing. I've got 400 rooms, 80 rooms. I'm not sure, but let's go make this the facility. Not that they should. I don't think investment in making what do they call them? Negative pressure rooms and things like that, which when you really truly have quarantines, that's kind of the environment you want. I don't think that's going to be happening. But all of a sudden, that might be a public use where you go, this is the best use for this real estate in these facilities. Now, I don't know where they staff people because, again, well-trained medical professionals who can go deal with it. That's a whole nother issue.
We don't know how
But
the
again,
CDC
my prediction would be some of the hoteliers will go, you know what, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go turn this thing into a
we don't know how the
into a
CDC is
facility.
going to handle the progression of quarantine versus diagnosis versus treatment. I mean, there's different tiers of engagement with all of those. But to your point, and I know this with the Vancouver property, we're doing this, and Kat, you asked about how we're reacting to these things. We're not going into the consortium market for the government. We're not trying to just reach out to government travelers, but we are representing the fact that we have and will honor per diem rates in an open market, military offers, government travel offers. We're heightening our ad campaigns associated with government travel that they need to start relocating teams of people. We want to let them know that we have all suites, large rooms, so you can bring big suitcases. You have your own little kitchen so you can stay internally with your own food, things like this. We're talking about those things. Plus also, we're not next door to the medical centers in Vancouver. We are close to a couple of hospitals that treat these things as well. And we're talking about the fact that it isn't just the person that has it; it's the family that's impacted with it.
Absolutely,
and be nearby. So we're going out and talking about our proximity to medical. We're talking about the size of the suites, the durability of having long-term stay capabilities, because we have the kitchenette, we have a larger room because it's a suite. So you're not confined to stepping over suitcases and, grub hubbing food and all this other stuff. So these are the things that we're already doing in response to the potential of the demand in those segments. Whether it comes around or not, at least we feel like we're addressing them if it does. It's not silver bullets. This is all little pieces of stuff, pieces to the puzzle of all this. But it's a heck of a lot better than just saying, "Oh, let's go dump everything on OTA and drop our rates and hope someone demand."
And to be a good ethical, hospitality industry, leader. What can you do to help your guests? What do people need help with? What do you do? And not just saying, "Oh, that's an opportunity to go, to gouge them on rates or to do whatever." No. And that doesn't work out. So you can build a huge amount of goodwill and be a tremendous, corporate citizen and a good local pillar of business and the right things to do at these points. And that's, again, kind of the tradition of hospitality, right? That was always you kind of had the mayor, the sheriff, and the innkeeper. That was kind of the top three in the community. So
I thought it was the bar owner.
To step
I thought it was Miss Kitty out of
I think the bar owner worked for the innkeeper, though.
Yeah, I was like, no, they're the same person, just different hats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, the barkeeper, I think, was a direct report to the innkeeper.
And that's great. And I know we had mentioned on a previous call regarding making your room or marketing the fact that your hotel has is either ADA compliant or has accessibility features, particularly with families in mind that might be traveling to see and stick around for somebody who is ill. That will also increase your opportunities of folks coming to you versus other hotels.
Absolutely. Yeah, and working with the businesses, again, Loren said, you work with the hospitals, you work with, whoever, the services, the local thing, just say, hey, how can we help? What do you need? Right? And and all of a sudden, hey, you're a good active member, helping the community that at least from a karma perspective, it should work out. So there you go.
Hey, Kat, I want to make this a public apology. I have had this sitting in a box trying to get it mailed to you forever.
Aww.
So I just don't know that you have it. I just got to get it to you. So as soon as I get a little bubble envelope here, it's coming your way with another badge that I know you lost one in the little.
I was like, you owe me two other things too that you said you're sending me like a month ago.
Well,
when I saw you in November.
Yeah, right.
You realize Loren handcrafts those, so it takes a very long time.
You wrote my name beautifully.
I noticed I did not even attempt to even try to write it wrong.
I pretend it's because my last name is so long for it to fit properly. That was
a character issue on the plaque. Yes, that's true.
Right. I was like, oh, and can I tell you that Mohammad is ED, not AD? Just saying it out loud. Again.
Is it misspelled, Loren?
I'm going to scratch this.
I don't know if you've ever seen my emails, right? But
no, did he misspell? Loren, one thing for Loren, he's very consistent, however.
I am at that.
He will
screw it up.
Yeah, he'll mess it up thoroughly. He's very thorough also. Yeah.
Oh, you know what it is? I'm gonna take the same latitude that most people do when they give me an award and they spell it Grey. I'm like, you're close.
Oh, I see. I'll have like a little
AY,
paper
whatever. It's the same
with the
thing.
E.
That's right.
Yeah.
You go, it's the American spelling. It's an A. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Thing. Whatever.
Right,
It's the
but
thought
thank
that counts. That's what it is. It's the thought that counts.
It is. That's tremendously thoughtful. Thank you.
Because I want to let you know, I just have not, for the life of me, between all the traveling and everything else, I haven't been able to put it into a little bubble wrap because I've got to find something so it doesn't get banged up on the way over. And I figured by the time I actually do that, I'm probably going to see you in April anyway. I'm like, hopefully I'll get it for you before I see you in April. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Yeah. By showing it to you, I'm now inspired to find someone getting it to you rather than going, oh, yeah, I was supposed to do that before I traveled. I forgot all about that. Yeah.
The pressure's on. I'll keep asking.
The pressure's on.
It.
It's like when you're telling somebody you're going to lose weight, you got to lose the weight because they're going to be like, did you lose the weight?
Can't you tell? Like,
Yeah.
No, my friends would be like, no, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I have learned over the years just avoid those conversations completely. That's
very true.
The safest bet. So don't make a comment that you think is going to be very kind and affirming and helpful. It's going to turn out badly.
Right. Hey, I know that this is in line with what we were just talking about. I'm just going to throw it there as an article because we already hit Airbnb in some discussion, but this article you threw up about the utopian or lack of utopian world.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it is kind of funny that these companies and Uber and all of these ones that sharing economy and what have you, as time goes on and these things evolve where, you know, they're not paying the taxes, they're being found to be deceptive in their practices, they're abusive to the markets that they're in, and the impact of displacing affordable housing for, you know, something like Airbnb. As these
that's
things
the big
forward,
one.
Yeah. You know, and you wonder why they didn't at the peak of their interest before all these things started becoming public that they didn't IPO. You know, because you're like, that was your pinnacle. Now you're getting dragged into the mud. You're getting torn through these processes that are, you know, diminishing the value of what you could have been to market. But in a great way, I'm glad that they did because there's a certain reality to their value proposition. And like you pointed out, Kat, you know, with the market the way it is, with what we're concerned with this black swan, where is this going to go for all of them? It would seem unreasonable for them to think about trying to go IPO while this is a issue because it is going to impact their value proposition in markets.
Yeah,
I would think.
Well, yeah, and again, I've taken shots at H&LA for years. For this, I thought that they were just completely backwards with Airbnb. You know, for 10 years, I think I've been shooting it because what they should have done at the beginning should have been, oh, this is great. It's a new form of lodging. So here's what you do in terms of staff training. Here's what you do in terms of security. Here's what you do in terms of paying taxes. Here are all those different things. If they embraced it instead of the try to kill it with fire and lobby around it, you kind of go, you know what? That probably would have had a much better outcome because then once you're proactive and say, here's what you should be doing, how can we help? And they go, we are not going to pay taxes. We are not going to do security. You can start going, wait a second, hang on. You are doing it wrong. And then all of a sudden it's formalized and you can go address the key issues at hand. So, but yeah, I think the marketplace will deal. And Airbnb is a great business, and I think Chesky and those guys are running the business right. They've got smart people on the teams, but it was that whole initial culture, which was really more of the Uber kind of style, kind of that bro called just like screw it and go. They got caught up in that for a little while, but I think once they kind of got Chip Connolly in there, I think he set them straight on the here's how you do this stuff right for hospitality. And I think for the most part they have been doing it, except I did have that article that they're suggesting surveillance cameras. And again, these are very, very slippery slope, difficult privacy things, because that whole convenience versus privacy versus how do you do this right, and any tools can be used for good, they can be used for evil, right? So how do you make sure that things are being done the right way is tough. But yeah, we'll see. I think their prospects may be a little bit diminished, and they probably should have IPO'd earlier, especially now with the coronavirus thing. They may wind up regretting, but we'll have to see how they turn out. But it's generally a good business, but it's not an easy business, right? So
no. So Kat, do you have any preference of an article before we get to the boop or the ruh-roh?
No, honestly, I thought the boop looked interesting, but
I have the best boop now. If only Loren would let me generate these stories like at 10 a.m., then we would have. Oh, there's a great one for next week. It's tremendous, but I will not hint at what it is. But this one, it's okay. Yeah, it was okay. It was okay, but there'll be a great one.
Is that like the commercials for Geico? Oh, what do you think about Dr. Smith? Oh, he's okay.
Exactly.
So, what made it stand out for you, Robert? Why was this boop worthy?
Oh, it wasn't. I had to find one, but the world's 50. I thought everything is so. Kind of, it's a tough week. Expedia layoffs, coronavirus, all this stuff. I thought, well, here are the world's 50 most beautiful cities. Okay.
Yeah, this list may change in like a month or two.
But again, it's just like, let's go escapism. Let's go look at these, and they are. And actually, I started going through the list. I'm like, hey, I've been to a lot of these places. That's good.
That's always I love those ones when they have those, especially on Facebook. Where somebody says the 9 things you have to eat when you're in Holland. I'm like, yep. For the 5 cities you need to see when you're in sunshine. Yep. It's like you feel good that you've had the chance to experience them firsthand.
There are some local delicacies in certain parts of the world, Loren, that are a little bit more. A little bit more interesting and challenging though. So
that's true. And there's so many places that's the beauty and joy of travel, is that there's so many places you have to see. And that's what the hurt of these things when these come around, that you diminish your interest because of concern, whether it's valid or not. Am I going to go to that wine country because in California they have this this new person had this? Why would that even be a consideration? It didn't happen there, but you these elongated dots that says the potential is higher. So that means that the risk aversion is higher. And that's the part that we, from a marketing perspective, have to address, is that we have to not playdicate to it, but to address it in a way that is knowledgeable and honest and truthful, and not react to the hype, but then again, also don't over dramatize or downplay the potential threat that it may represent from the perception. Whether it's real or not, the perception is.
Perception is reality. That's That's unfortunately the bottom line.
Addressing it in a way that people feel that you're aware of this and you're as concerned about it as they are, but you feel that you can still objectively let them know that there is nothing that you're aware of that should be of grave concern, given the circumstances that you're trying to create and the environment you're trying to create and the precautions you're trying to do to make sure that they have a safe and comfortable travel journey with them. So it's hard, but eventually fear will overtake it, that there will be a paralysis of travel. There will be, I'm not going to go anywhere for a while. Sorry.
If corporations are taking 6-week travel moratoriums, right, and major companies, that is going to have an effect. And my prediction is, again, I'm not sure if you wind up with a situation, if some region of the U.S. winds up with kind of the northern Italy scenario, that will happen here too, right? And we'll just have to see if the U.S. gets lucky. And the problem are these spikes, right? If it's just kind of flat and spreading and it's kind of going, I mean, that's bad. But when you have kind of these spikes in certain areas, and again, because the incubation period, things like that, there's a high probability of that, because you can't really defend yourself against it if you don't even know it's there in your community until it starts popping up. But anyway, but yeah, if you go down the list of cities, you want to talk about nice things, maybe we can do a, have you been there on the top 50? So Paris, yes, right?
I haven't traveled nearly as much to the internationals.
You haven't? You've never been to Paris?
Not yet.
Oh my goodness!
Turn off his butt and have him bring you to Paris. Dang it!
My favorite. Okay, wait a second. I foresee a name change of this. So it's going to be the Franco Asian American Hotel Association Owners Association. Yeah, something like that.
Right.
Paris is great. That's probably my favorite city on the planet. New York, number 2. I'm not sure what parts of New York they were looking at for the most beautiful cities in the world. That's highly controversial. I would say.
At least they left out the image of the Hudson in the picture, at least.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was just there last week and went to the Freedom Tower. The view from there was spectacular.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Freezing.
It's
and
great.
It was cold. Yeah.
Oh hey, I finally went to the Statue of Liberty during HSMAI conference on that Saturday in a cold driving rainstorm, but it was still great in Ellis Island. Soaked to the bone, but it's still a great experience.
Yeah, it's worth doing the whole trip in Ellis, like you said. The whole thing is worth it. It is an amazing, inspirational visit. London, certainly, some beautiful areas. I don't know. Venice, yes, I definitely say
when it's not flooded.
Well, that's true, but Venice is a spectacular place. Vancouver, absolutely spectacular. I have not been to Barcelona or Cape Town. I both tried.
I've been to Cape Town, but I've been to Barcelona.
I've been around Barcelona, but I've never made it. I've been to Madrid and Sevilla and all over, but never
Barcelona
made it.
Is very pretty city.
Yeah, Cape Town always on.
Is amazing.
San Francisco, I think that gets my thumbs up for Sydney, certainly, absolutely. Again, all over northern Italy, but I've never made it to Rome.
Really?
No, I haven't. I've passed by, but not. Singapore, absolutely spectacular. Never made it to Lisbon. Amsterdam, absolutely great. Yeah, great city. I haven't made it to Prague. Haven't made it to Rio. Haven't made it to Budapest, Istanbul, Tokyo. Very cool. Vienna, haven't made it there. Buenos Aires, Toronto, used to live there. Great place. San Diego, Quebec City, of course. Hong Kong, yep. Chicago, haven't made it to Bruges, Madrid, haven't made it to Havana, Dubai. I haven't made it to Dubai, which is.
I haven't made it to Dubai yet either.
Yep. I almost made it to Jerusalem.
Yeah. Definitely on this list made it to the domestic ones. Not even Vancouver.
You got to go.
I think there's a discussion with the boyfriend tonight going, honey.
I was like, it's been like 7 months, Loren. Like, we got to get to know each other.
Well, it's time for him to start buying some tickets.
Exactly. You go, here's the next step of our relationship. I've got a list of 43 places we need to visit.
So I literally just emailed the list. I said, hey, here's your travel list.
Oh, yeah.
If any indication from when you showed your daughter with her bright eyes and her huge smile, I think she would love every place you pick.
That's right.
My LinkedIn post. Yes. Oh, that's right. You both commented. Thank you.
And that's the thing that the kids and I mean, we started dragging our older daughter at 6 months, and sort of thing, and both of them, and they live to travel. I mean, it's just, and there's this thing. Yeah, they want to explore. They want to experience different cultures, different foods, different whatever. And
it's one of those things. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say my younger daughter's still going through withdrawal from living in Florence for spring semester last year, where Lubbock didn't make the list. I don't know. She's at Texas Tech. I don't know why, but she's sitting there going, wow, just such an incredible opportunity. I was going to say I was planning on going to Jerusalem, and then there was a no confidence vote when I was in Israel at the government, and it was recommended to me maybe not the best weekend to visit Jerusalem. And there weren't any problems. I should have gone, but Edinburgh, great place. If you want to see a castle cat, that's a castle.
Edinburgh cat, yeah.
You go up to that if you are the attacking army and just go. Yeah, we're going home. That's not good. Quito, Ecuador, have not made it there. Zurich, haven't made it. Cusco in Peru, would love to go to Machu Picchu. Have not been to St. Petersburg. Berlin, tremendous city. I mean, just absolutely great. Have not made it to Hanoi. have not made it to Queenstown, New Zealand. San Miguel de Allende, the colonial cities in Mexico are spectacular. I have not been there.
There's like no Caribbean places.
No, well, these are the kind of cities. Sort of Seoul, great place. Dubrovnik, I haven't made it there, but my daughter did. She raved about it. She said Croatia is probably the most beautiful place she's ever been in her life. San Sebastian in Spain. Yep. Bangkok, amazing place. My older daughter was actually just there. Was just there recently, just raving about it. Have not been to Cartagena. Dublin, great place. Marrakesh, have not made it, but my older daughter loves it. Nope. To Bergen. Jaipur, nope. Have not made it to India. Always have wanted to. Have not made it to Beijing or Athens. And my older daughter's made it to Athens. Hey, wait a second.
Hey, guess
this
what?
is not good. Yeah, they're starting to beat me out on some of these.
Guess what? Calvin Anderson is no longer with Oyo.
Really?
Yeah. He left Oyo.
Oh, well, that's Oyo. I would think would be having some downsizing. This,
I just noticed we're running on time right now. Let's hit the rut row because
anyway, that's a great list of cities.
It is a great list of cities. It really is, and it's a great reminder. For as much as you think you've traveled, you haven't.
Right.
You think you've seen it so much, and and so forth. And I got a lot of head nodding of ones I've gone to, but that's only a quarter of the list at best.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many other amazing places yet to go see and stuff. So I guess the warm-hearted aspect of this, regardless of this black swan event going on with this uncertainty of the virus, is a reminder that in all time, all things do pass, or at least they get absorbed into what you create as normal. And you have to remind yourself that there's still a big and amazing world to go and see. And not to think that you have to be avoiding everything all the time, that eventually these things do settle into what they are. And we do compensate, whether we wear masks or whether we have a antivirus or something. But eventually, we'll find some methodologies to handle the impact on our communities. So,
well, and the technologies are pretty amazing. Again, they've mapped the protein. They kind of know what it does. Again, this one's very interesting when you start reading about the science behind it. It behaves a lot like HIV in terms of it has some sort of this kind of spike, this cleaved spike that grabs onto these proteins, and which is actually how MERS behaves as well. So it's got certain behavior, but then they're looking at going, okay, that's the thing we've got to break, right? And so that way you can start working on vaccines and testing them and going, yep, this will keep that thing from attaching to such and such a protein, and I think we're good until it mutates. And then you go and you start over. But the MERS one is really bad. That had like the 30% mortality rate. But the fortunate part was it attached to a particular protein that people don't. It isn't widespread throughout your body. You'll have it in their lungs, but it's a very small sort of a thing. Unfortunately, this COVID-19 attaches to these proteins that people have a ton of.
So, Kat, are you like me when I look at Robert and say, why is all that in your head?
Because I've got to talk. I get paid to talk. People ask me what's going on with the travel industry, what's going to happen, and I'm like, how the hell do I know? Let's figure out.
I'm in amazement, Robert. Sometimes of the things that is just like they got it on. It's like this and this, you're going, okay, I know I talk a lot about it, and when it's stuff I love, I know a lot about it. But dang, that's a lot of stuff I didn't even know you knew about.
We know who to call when we need to phone a friend.
Right? The Oracle, Robert. Hey, I threw up the rut row, which is as usual a rut row of, oh yeah, sure, please take my information. Everybody else
a lot
has
of
it.
these things throughout this whole discussion probably could have been the rut row. Certainly the Expedia one fell into that case.
Yeah, there's a lot of Marriott's report, Airbnb's report.
Yeah, the Airbnb with the surveillance devices. There are a couple things though. The why Amazon knows so much about you, I thought was very interesting. MIT's 9 megatrends to watch for 10 years from now. There's some really kind of really cool articles in there, which are kind of longer reads, but they're great. But yeah,
to the show notes. Yeah, they'll be on the show notes, of course. And thank you, Robert, for sharing that. But the rut row.
The Rutrow is Clearview AI, who we talked about. I don't know if they were the Rutrow a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago. This was the group that had gone and culled billions of photos from all across social media, which are being traded. They're being published, for public consumption, and they just had this incredible face recognition AI, right? And they started arguing that it was their freedom of speech to be able to collect all this personal information and to use it for their own purposes, even though people hadn't given them authorization to certainly have it or to use it for particular ways. And this is just, I think the big Rutrow is they had all this stuff. They were being jerks about it. And guess what? Their entire client list was just stolen. Oops. So they got hacked.
And it's for missing, well, they said starting off with missing children. They said they're helping find children and combat crime. I was like, great. If any of these folks are working with traffickers, then they just got a nice directory.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The conspiracy theory to me is, all these things that that these hacks go on and they take data from different sources. God knows we have a long grocery list of where they've taken data, and it always was under the perception that they're trying to steal credit card numbers for the dark web and for people to steal money. It's not. It's be able to create triangulations of data that so now they have information about citizen X. And now there's these identifiable photos, and now all of a sudden we can find citizen X perhaps in those images and their location that the image was taken. And now slowly in the process of aggregating these data sources, there's a avatar that's created of someone as to who they are, what they do, where they live, what they work, what they do, on and on and on. And for what malicious purpose? Who's to know yet? But that's the capability of this stuff. And even from a marketing perspective, I always make the joke, the only difference between marketers and government is that the government knows you by name. I can triangulate data from different sources and pretty much narrow down who you are. Over time, based on your engagements with me and based on platforms of data, I can eventually do that. Do I want to? No, not really, because that's not what you gave me the data to do it with. I mean, again, it's the GDPR, the CCPA, look, treat the data as not yours, but it's on loan. So you don't want to be invasive with its use. You want to use it to the purpose it was given to you, which is to enhance your relationship with that guest to improve your service abilities to them. But this is just a malicious act that, it's going to be used for the wrong reasons, as you point out, Kat. It's going to be taken by people that are going, oh, wow, look at this. It's a grocery list, Yeah. And it's not going to be.
And not to burst everyone's bubble, but it was not Tim Peter who originated the quote, when you build the ship, you invent the shipwreck. That was a French, I did look this up. I did not, an aesthetic philosopher, Paul Virilio, who, a French gentleman came up with that great quote. But yeah, any of these tools, they have what they were designed for, which are great. And then you got this whole other, if you tweak it this way, you can use it for something else. And that is a problem. I had a conversation. I'm involved in this industry initiative for a unique hospitality identifier. And we had a very interesting conversation yesterday about the security required. And somebody mentioned that, we don't really need to worry about that because we aren't going to have credit card identifiers, and we're going to keep personally identifiable information separately and things like that. And I was like, wait a second, this has nothing to do with a financial transaction. This is a list of all the, the hotels in the world and all the relationships of their tech stacks and their distribution channel. You get someone in there who just decides they're going to mess with it. Not that they want to do anything. They're just going to go screw it up. Make it, make it not work for fun and laughs. You've got to protect against it. So yeah, all of a sudden we're now having a follow-up call on security. What's the minimum viable product for security? And it's got to be a high bar. That's got to be baked in from the beginning for everything that hoteliers do. Everybody, the entire industry. If you're dealing with technology, security has to be the first step. Well, you break that, it doesn't work. Everything else stops. So
now that we've had that, we've identified the meteor is coming to hit the planet Earth today on the show.
The meteor's already here. It's already hit. Yeah.
What does that mean? Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Orville.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, no, there is, as and Kat, thank you for asking the questions, that there is always opportunity where there is concern, these events happening and so forth from any perspective. It depends on what your interest is and what your opportunity that you're looking for is. Just don't look at it as completely negative. It's sad for those that are affected by this. It's sad for those that have lost their life for this. It's strange when you talk about personal perceptions of this, where people are making jokes or they're tired. And I've kind of stepped away from even engaging with them on that, because to me, it's not something that's humorous. Where they talk about Corona as in the beer and things like this, where it is impacting people's lives. It is costing people's lives. And it is something to be concerned with, as all things are. Flu is just as deadly in its own way, and other things are in that sense. It's how we treat it and how we respond to it that is the most important. And not to be opportunistic from a business side, but to be rational on your business side, that there are things that you can do to continue your business without being exploitive, not raising rates just because you can, or selling masks just because you bought a bunch of them. But by the same token, also be mindful that you have to be concerned yourself, that you have to make sure you're protecting your teams and you're protecting your business and that you're protecting your guests, and that these are all aspects that are just as responsible as whether or not we're able to do business. So it is something we'll keep, obviously it's going to be a part of our conversation for a long time. And we'll find ways to translate that into a hospitality perspective as to what our industry does to react to it, what our industry is doing to stave off problems and whatever have you. But we will try to keep it positive, I think.
And unfortunately, my prediction is that it will get worse. My prediction is, and actually, I'm hoping these predictions don't come true. But kind of evaluating this, I think there's a high probability the Summer Olympics will get canceled, unless there's a sudden drop-off curtailment, which would be fantastic. But I don't see in history things behaving that way. And then it gets worse in the fall. That's, I think, the bad thing. Then you get the vaccine. Yeah, this time next year you get the vaccine,
trials.
Things like that. Yeah, the trials will go through. And you don't want to rush those things, but then things will start to get better and stabilized, sort of thing. So I think it's going to be a rough road. Although, Loren, I do disagree on one particular coronavirus-related joke, which is the way you catch this is from Corona beer, but to avoid getting it, you put a lime in the neck of the bottle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works well.
I like that joke. It's so obviously stupid. But.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I don't ever want to limit humor, because humor,
right,
can take, it helps people, but not at the detriment or someone's. I certainly wouldn't want to pick on somebody for anything to be humorous about it. So, Anyway, Kat, if people want to know more about you or reach out to you, where is it they can find you?
You can find me at cat.m.speaks@gmail.com. I am also at AHOA all the time sometimes. So you can reach out to me there if you're an AHOA member.
24/7 availability.
Yeah, something like that, especially pre-convention. It's getting rough. I wanted to just mention with that last rough road area, it was circled back to the coronavirus, and you're mentioning that quote that, once you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck. So from what Loren was saying, in being opportunistic, we anticipate the meteor hitting, we anticipate the shipwreck. So what does your strategy look like planning from that seat versus potential of it? Like, start really thinking from the other side of it, how you can keep your business up and not be impacted and stay safe. Because at the end of the day, if money is what's lost, but you're alive, and everybody's safe and well, that's great. But everybody's listening to this is ultimately trying to make money and trying to run their business. So in a way, take advantage of your opportunity to help others and also make money in the process.
Newsflash: ITB was just canceled.
They did cancel ITB.
160,000 people. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the attendance. So, yep.
Where was that one being hosted?
Berlin. Yeah, the largest travel conference in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would have brought them if it wasn't there. It would have arrived.
Yeah. No,
they stopped the meteor.
That's another thing you need to get. You need to get over to ITB. You got to figure out maybe with the whole French angle. When you're expanding there, you'll need to launch it at ITB. That's a new objective. We got to figure out how to get Kat around the world in her role at AHOA to be international ambassador. There you go.
Yeah, we'll figure this out.
Okay, we'll figure this out.
Yeah, we're not going to get Kat around the world right now. We're going to wait about 8 months. See what happens.
You talk about opportunity. The opportunity can be that you do online summits and you start producing content associated with how to handle what's going on.
Yep.
And so that you're not exposing people to unnecessary risk in their mind to attend a large grouping, but by the same token, you're still able to communicate the message. And then having platforms like I use Hey Summit, where you can have separate rooms. So you can have vendor rooms, you can have other dialogue rooms, so that you can have that conference-esque networking capability virtually, and also have your sponsorships or vendors engaged so that they still can communicate their product message. So yeah, there's, like you said, for every ship, there's a shipwreck potential. So, Mr. Robert, sir, if they want to find out more about the amazing Rock Cheetah.
rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole on social media.
And if they want to sign up to your amazing...
thank you for reminding me. bit.ly/rockcheetah, all in lowercase. So bit.ly/rockcheetah, all lowercase.
So you can see all of Robert's hard work on lists that we don't get all to.
But that's okay. Yeah, there was an extra bonus of like 5 extra coronavirus related things today.
Actually, it had a lot of great content to it too. Yes,
I like the stats. They were really helpful. The one with all the graphs.
That is an amazing site. That's the one that I've kind of had bookmarked, that I just kind of take a look at that to say, here's what's going on. And then communicating it with other people where they go, hey, this is getting great. You go, well, that's just like a one-day blip. I think we mentioned that on the show a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it, probably like 3 weeks ago. I said, hey, this is great. The newly reported cases is declining in China. This is fantastic news. And then I think over the weekend it broke where they did the 15,000 person adjustment because they were only counting people who were admitted to hospitals, and you could only get admitted to the hospital if you had the test. And they ran out of tests.
Right.
So all of a sudden it was completely the other direction. It was like, damn it. But that was the site where I saw that stuff, and that they update it pretty regularly, and they don't publish stuff if they find out that it's somewhat suspect or there's conflicting information. They'll pull the whole chart and go, we aren't sure about this. It'll come back when we know what numbers are accurate. So we'll see. But anyway, it's a great site, and it's in the notes. We posted it there. So
yep. I'm actually, my podcast today is going to be a little tailored to some of the conversation we had today, but I was already looking at how to create a demographic profiling so you can begin to do segmentation analysis on future demand. Quick little brief. I got a couple of tools that do pretty good on allowing you to look and evaluate your demographics so you can create personas so that you can think about where you can begin to target some of your high probability conversions of interest that still would be going forward based on what they fall into as travel reasons and so forth. So that will be on the podcast today. That'll be posted later. I got to record that.
And I almost forgot. Kat was looking for the recommendations. What to do? My recommendations are with this: protect your staff, protect your guests, protect your community. If you do those 3 things, you'll come out of this okay.
Yep.
Right? If you ignore any of those 3 things, things will not turn out well for you. You will be in a hole, trying to climb out of it. So,
for this show and all previous 237 shows, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 238 for the show notes, which is Robert's complete list that curated, plus the replay of this entire 2 hour and 22-minute show.
Sorry.
Robert. And it's not Kat that created the length of the show. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. I apologize. I'll do better next week.
Get a list of the top 10 cities. All right, don't go beyond that.
Whoa,
that's right where it is.
Just trying to.
You were traveling down memory lane.
It was cathartic for me trying to go. Here are all the places I need to go, and let's go do that.
You're wistfully thinking about it. Yeah, you went off and Kat and I were like, okay, the list will in.
I thought, we said there are 50. I mean, these are good places. So.
They're all 50, Robert.
One by one, yeah.
Exactly.
Anyways, thank you everyone that joined us. Lex, thank you. Louis, thank you. And for those who are on the other platforms, thank you so much for joining us as well. Our next show will be, of course, number 239, next Friday, 11:30 Eastern. As I mentioned, there is a podcast we also do. It's much shorter than this show, 20 to 30 minutes, which is a recap of some tools and techniques. And as mentioned, we're going to be doing some profiling of demographics today to do some target personas. So if you're interested in that, look for podcast number 238 of hospitality marketing. And the cool part, just so you guys know this, and it's really neat, 48% of everybody that listens to my podcast, which is now over 5,000 people, listen to it on Alexa.
Wow.
Yeah. I was so happy I made the skill set for it. So if you can go to, and Siri will do it too. Siri, Alexa, and Google Assistant. If you all have to do is say, hey Siri, or hey Alexa, or okay Google, play Hospitality Marketing Podcast, it'll play the latest edition.
Okay, Google, play Hospitality Marketing Podcast.
Okay, playing the latest episode of Hospitality Marketing Show 237.
Ta-da!
Okay, Google, stop. Wow, that was pretty impressive, Loren.
I know, right?
I probably would have put money on that not working. So and
my Siri kicked up too because it started talking, but you do it on Alexa too, and it doesn't say. And I'm like, that is just so cool because people are actually short-circuiting what is already a convenient thing where you have podcasts as a function on your phones. Yeah. Subscribe and stuff. You can actually just play it. And 48% of my listenership right now is doing it on Alexa.
We probably should do a show where we drop in various commands during the show just to keep setting people's things off.
Anyways, thank you both for making the show and keeping me company with all this, and everything's awesome. And we'll talk next week, 11:30 Eastern. And thank you, everyone else that was on the show for us today. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.